Good evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 369th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Hazel, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show, to the death, for glory, for victory, for all things. That is tonight's theme. We're going to get to all of that, including our guest of honor this evening. Before we get to that, we do have to get to, before we get to that formal introduction, we do have to get through the things that make this show possible. And that includes shaking off the rust, which I clearly have, but we have to mention the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is brought to you by Droasate. Since its birth on the factory floor, Underground has always represented the spirit of the underdog. The newest extension of the Underground line sees this familiar underdog spirit extended past Nicaragua to the fields of the Dominican Republic to create the all-new Underground experience, unlike any I've seen before. Underground El Tigre Dominicano is a defining new chapter for the Underground brand, one deeply rooted in the Dominican Republic. For the first time, Underground embraces the Dominican filler forward expression with the elegant and rich Dominican filler tobaccos in full spotlight. At the core of El Tigre is a beautiful pairing of Dominican HVA and C98 leaves, tobacco selected specifically for their balance, structure, and aromatic depth. Together, they build a layered, expressive base of flavors easily enjoyed by any fan of premium cigars. So check out your Drew Diplomat retailer today for the all-new Underground El Tigre Dominicano. And welcome, everybody. This is our 369th take. If you're listening to us via the airwaves, wherever you listen to audio podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, you're listening to us courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. Compassionate, honest, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today. If you're listening to us via video broadcast, like we are broadcasting on Facebook almost every Sunday night, we've taken a couple weeks off this summer for some very good reasons, but we are ahead full steam, hopefully for the rest of the year, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, or later on YouTube. You can hit the bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel, ELOSOFUMAR. Our video broadcast is always courtesy of our friends at Foundation Cigars. Nick Melillo is a well-known cigar maker in the premium cigar industry. He is the founder and owner of Foundation Cigars, which produces a range of high-quality, handcrafted cigars. His values consist of quality, consistency, balance, and flavor. Check out foundationcigars.com today. And welcome, everybody. As I mentioned before, this is our 369th take. So without further ado, let's get to introductions of tonight's guest, which is brought to you by United Cigar. Smoke one today and start living united. It is the cigar surgeon himself, John McTavish of Developing Palates. John, how are we doing tonight?
When I got the message and you're like, "Hey man, can you do me a solid?" And I'm like, "I'm not doing you the solid. You're doing me the solid." I'm so excited to be on the show because it's just you and me, and we don't get a lot of you and me time. It's always like, it's a group or we're in a multi-person podcast. You and I getting to sit down and do a podcast together. I am jacked. I'm so excited for tonight, and especially excited because I took a staycation next week, so I don't care how late we go. This is fantastic. I'm ready to roll. Ready to roll.
Awesome, man. Well, I got the coffee brewed, delivered courtesy of my beautiful wife, and we are ready to go and get this show on the road. So really excited to have you, John. We're going to get to tonight's theme here in just a second, but I am pretty pumped about that. But I was thinking about you specifically today because I picked up some of the Padron Maduro 3000s that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing Padron 3000 on the Smoking Syndicate Roundtable tomorrow night. So tune in for that.
Hardest roundtable session ever, I'm sure. It's like, you basically got one of the most lauded brands in this entire industry, and you're like, I guess we'll do a roundtable. Twist my arm.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make we're probably going to make some enemies tonight too. So I figured, let's just pile on just in case, the round table doesn't go well. But I'm pretty confident. I've had that cigar many times, but it'll be interesting to kind of get everybody's thoughts. That's what's great about the round table and the great about the smoking experience. But I was thinking about you specifically, and it's funny that you brought it up in the green room because you were talking about what size is the Padron 3000, and I was like, right? I don't know. But I looked at it just before we went live, and the gauge is not bigger than a 52. It has to be a 52 gauge. and it's a little bit taller than the standard five. I have a Robusto here for reference, but it's got to be 5 3/4, six max. So six by
Huh.
50, 6 by 52, I don't think it, but it doesn't look like a traditional Toro, so I think it's a little shorter based on the measurement against the 5 inch cigar. I think it's like 5 3/4 by 52. So it makes it like
What an odd size.
yeah, it makes it like a Robusto Extra or a Corona. I don't even know what to call that. So
Skinny Toro. Like, yeah, it's just such an odd. I mean, it's unique to them.
yeah.
And I don't even know that. I don't even know that most people pay attention to the sizes. They just know they fall in love with whatever thousand that they like, right? And
Hmm.
then like that's their thousand, and that's what they smoke.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I could cheat and just look it up, but I know it was just kind of funnier. It was just more fun to guess a little bit and kind of like play comparison and stuff. But as we always do here, I know on LS Fumar Takes, and you're going to participate tonight, so I'm really excited about this. So
Hmm.
we'll, as we are courteous here, and I mean, you are the king of courtesy. You are Canadian, so, but I will let you go for, I will let you decide. Do you want to go first? Do
Oh,
you want me to go first? I
no,
know
no,
we pick each
no.
other's.
We got it. We got to do the bear tradition. We got to go bear first, and then guess second, because
Okay.
that's just how we do.
Awesome. Well, John, I got 3 cigars for you to pick from. Whatever you decide, I am going to light up and I am going to smoke this evening and get the evening started with you. So I'm pumped to do it. I picked up this cigar earlier today, along with the Padron 3000. I was pretty stoked about it to see it on the shelf. I've been waiting for it. But I have the all-new Asylum 13 Arabian Nights Robusto. I have it in a
Ooh,
Robusto size. I didn't get crazy with it.
starting out
Uh,
strong. Starting out strong.
I've got I got a John Classic here, man. I got a Tatuaje Cabai Guan.
Oh, you're making it hard tonight.
Yeah, this is look at that label, man. This is one of the old school labels,
Yeah,
like I
love seeing
mean,
that.
and then of course I got another oldie but a goodie that stays tried and true, has been on our shelves for a while, and I've got the La Aroma de Cuba Mi Amor in the
Oh, I love
Belicoso
that cigar.
size.
I love that
So
cigar. Have you smoked the Arabian Nights yet?
no.
Okay, well then that's a no-brainer. You got to go the Asylum Arabian Nights. I feel like, let's set the pace early. Let's throw some curveballs, toss some shoulders, keep people on their toes. They think they got us figured out. Boom. They
I,
probably were thinking Tatuaje, but you know,
I'm excited about this, man. I just don't know if anything can compare to the Asylum Signature Series by Tom Lazuka that he released, because that,
dude.
that cigar was so fucking good.
I mean, the thing is, it was so understated because it's like, hey, I got this cigar. It's this little project. I'm like, all right, oh, you're smoking it. And then, like, I think it was like a little telephone tree where, like, everyone messaging everyone, like, dude, did you smoke that signature? Yes. Or, like, so and so, like, no, I haven't smoked it yet. It's like, okay, stop what you're doing, go in your pack, and immediately pull out the signature and light it up. Yeah, I think Tom Tom might be his own worst enemy with that cigar. I think it's going to do well.
Yeah, I mean, when you see some of the industry's like biggest critics, Charlie Minato liked it.
Yeah.
Me liking it's not really a shock. I just like cigars. But like Charlie Minato liked it. I heard Aaron didn't throw it away. Uh
Yeah.
it was a big hit from the whole DP crowd, which you guys are known for your toughness,
We can be tough.
and so it was a hit, man. It was a hit. So but yeah, we'll see how this Arabian Night stacks up. I'm pumped to smoke it. But what do you have in store for me, John?
All right. So I got a new, I got a semi new, and then I got something super, super back catalog. So, first of all, because I love the brand, we got the new Boondock from Black Label Trading Company.
Oh,
So
nice.
this is brand new. I think this is a Robusto. Yeah. 5 by 52. Then, because I got to represent Espinoza, we got a knuckle sandwich, Connecticut.
Ooh, okay.
Nice size. Yeah. And then, and
What size?
then
What size is
going,
that Connecticut?
pretty sure that's a Robusto. Looks like a Robusto.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a Robusto. And then a Regis White by Casada.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's going way back. And this has got some yellow cello. But I saw it in the humidor. I'm like, man, I haven't lit one of those up in a long time. So all great cigars. What say you?
Um, we're gonna go a little oppo here. So I went new because I got,
Yeah.
you chose the Asylum Arabian Nights for me. So we're gonna choose the Regis for you.
Okay.
We're
All
gonna light
right.
up some aged gloriousness. I want to hear some feedback on that. That cigar was
It's a
great, man.
Bellicoso. Yeah. So, all right. Now I'm going to torch this. It's going to take a little while, I think, because this looks like a. No, this has got to be a 52. I don't think Regis ever. He was such a traditionalist. He never wanted large stuff,
Hmm.
which I respected because anyone who's a cigar geek love that stuff.
Is he still making? Is he still in the business?
I don't know. I mean, his cigars are still for sale. I actually turned a buddy on to Regis because I have a good buddy here locally. He hangs out and we smoke cigars. Although he has reminded me that we have gone past our regular hangout time. So he's like, "Hey, man, just to let you know, we were supposed to hang out a couple weeks ago." I'm like, "Oh man, I'm so bad at this stuff." But I float him stuff because he kind of did the transition from Cuban cigars to non-Cuban. And one of the things he said to me was like, "How do you navigate the space?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's got to be so hard for a new smoker coming into the space because there's so many brands, there's so many
Yeah.
sizes, there's so many offerings, and I don't think there's. I think we live in a time where there's truly not bad cigars. Like 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I think you could find bad cigars. I
Hmm.
think now what it is, it's about finding the standouts. And so he's like, well, dude, all you do is smoke new cigars. So like, tell me the standouts so that I can kind of borrow from you and I don't have to do it the hard way.
Nice. I think I think that's important for the critics of developing palates to hear what you just said. Like 10 to 15 years ago, you could find bad cigars, right?
Oh yeah,
Today,
easily.
you can't, there's not really bad cigars. So again, to the whole point of the developing palates like grading system, right? It's based on like, are you above average? Are you average or below average, right? If you're
Exactly.
average, like you're sitting really good because there
Yeah.
really aren't bad cigars in the market today. If you're sitting above average, obviously, then fantastic. I mean, it's wonderful. But so I think people need to understand that, maybe that opinion a little bit better. And they probably wouldn't be so harsh on you.
Well, I mean, I think what it comes down to, not to talk about, scoring systems or whatever, but I think Aaron's position, and I agree with him, is that I feel like what's happened is the scoring systems kind of ended up being at the top end. And so people got used to seeing 90s and 91s and 92s, and they got confused about the system, or like, I don't understand 1 to 10 because they're used to cigars being high scored. And we're like, look, dude, it's not that, and people really struggle to grasp. Five is not bad. Five just means average. It's like when you go out to have a pizza and someone says, "How was the pizza?" and you're like, "It was average." It's fine. It was pizza.
Yeah.
Like, how was it? It was pizza, man. I didn't have a bad time. It was
Yeah.
pizza. But like, it wasn't, the best five pizzas I've ever tasted in my life. And when you're going out for a nice meal, and pizza maybe not classified as a nice meal, but if you're going out for a nice meal, you want something stand out, right? At least for
Hmm.
me, I want something that's like, I'm looking forward to, I'm excited about, which is kind of what we're talking about tonight, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. I think that's a really great transition. So we'll go ahead and to launch into tonight's major point, which is brought to you by Grand Habano Cigars. From the fertile lands of Honduras, George Rico and his family have brought together and put together the very best vintages for you. Yes, you, the cigar smoker. From value-based hits like Corojo Number 5 to the award-winning 20th anniversary to special projects like Zulu Zulu, Gran Habano is about cultivating the best and making pinnacle cigars for the market. Culture, tradition, quality, premium handcrafted Gran Habano cigars. Well, John, let's talk about it, man. I put this idea forth and I personally, even though I want to be honest with my audience, this was a pinch hit situation with you coming in last minute. But I've been toying with this idea for a while. And if I am being honest, I could not imagine a better person to kick things off with, I think.
Oh, thanks, man.
Um, I'm hoping to launch this into a series where we bring this back a couple of times a year and just kind of have some fun with it. So um, I've been toying with this because I think it's a lot of fun, especially when you and bringing your context of cigar ratings and how DP does it. I think it's really when you kind of narrow the scope of what you're looking at, you can have a truly fun discussion and really decide what matters most. So
Totally.
tonight we are doing cigar death matches. Yeah, so this is a riff off of Celebrity Deathmatch. If you ever, if you, and for those of you guys back, from the '90s, actually remember this. There was a show called Celebrity Deathmatch, and so we are going to pit cigars mano y mano, one on one. Okay, so the rules of this is we're going to go through a series of cigar pairings, and you are supposed to choose just one cigar that will make it. The other is dead, dead forever. It's not going to come back. It is forever gone into the ether, and the one cigar that you pick will choose to reign supreme on the cigar plane. So it is a cigar death match. Now a couple of things before feelings do get hurt, and they will get hurt tonight, is that is not saying that you think the cigar sucks that dies.
What?
You're not saying that that cigar shouldn't belong on the market. You're not saying that that it is inferior to other cigars that it may have been outmatched up with. I chose a series of 40 cigars, and some I will be honest with you, I picked to go together specifically for specific reasons. The others are pretty random, and even though they're random, they kind of match up decently well. I was pretty surprised. So I will
Nice.
go through and I'll let you know why some were intentional because I thought it'd be fun. Um, and then I'll let you know if they were random as well. But John and I are going to pick, we're going to discuss, we're going to have a good time, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's what we're going to do for
Now,
tonight's
before
show.
we kick off, I just want to lead in with a quick anecdote because I kind of got a little taste of this when we came back from Louisiana for the PCA. Because of course, I can only bring back 50 cigars duty free. I can bring more than 50 if I want to push my luck, but then I know I'm going to be in a hassle where I got to negotiate, I got to play the game. Sometimes I don't want to do that if I'm flying back at 9:30. And so what you find really quick is when you got a pile of cigars and you can only bring 50, I mean, you got to make some hard choices. And like you
Yeah.
said, it's. I want to take them all. I want to take them all. But
Yeah.
if you can only pick 50, I was like, man, this is when you get down to like that last 10, like maybe the first 20, you're like, oh, these, definitely want these 20, no problem. And then you do the next 10, and it gets harder and harder and harder. And then you're like, man, this is, I don't. Somebody else pick. I don't want the responsibility.
This is some bullshit nugget that you have to choose, man. That sucks.
Hmm.
Um, but so a couple of things that we want to just clarify too. So again, this is a death match, so that means the one disappears forever, the other one survives forever. There are no ties. We will be picking one. There are no depends, and there are no vitolas. So we are going specifically cigar brand, cigar line, however you want to define it. But that's how we are doing this back and forth. And there is no changing your answer. So if John makes a pretty prevailing argument, I am not allowed to change my answer, and vice versa. Okay.
Nice.
So, um, John, we've got 20 matchups. So for the first five, I'm going to ask for you to go first. The next five, I will go first,
Okay,
and so on. Okay.
I can dig it.
All right. So rather than just complete snaking it, because then I would probably get confused. I'll be like, wait, who went first the last time? So we're going to go
Hmm.
5 and 5 and 5 and 5.
Yeah, Snake is, and we don't have a board in front of us. You've got the board, so Snake would make it a little complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Again, this was something I've been working on, but it was a little bit more on the fly. I think next time already I'm gonna have graphics up, and I think
Ooh,
that'll be a little bit more that'll be a little bit better. So,
our audience can use their mind.
all right. So, it's funny that you said something, John, about this. So let's go ahead and kick things off. Okay. So here's
All
our
right.
first matchup. It's funny you mentioned that this would be a fun thing to do with a couple friends of ours, June and Seth, if we did Cubans, and
Oh,
that is actually our first matchup today. So
oh,
here we
look at
go.
you.
Yeah. Um. So here we go. The first cigar death match in Elos Fumartake's history is the Monte Cristo number 2
Ooh.
versus the Cohiba Behique.
Oh man.
Yeah, man, we're going for the
Okay.
jugular. We're going for the jugular here.
Yeah,
You
you're
got
coming out. You're coming out big right out of the gate. I mean, yeah. I mean, the only way you could have made that harder is if you said PSD4 and Monty 2. I feel like that, that might have been. But
well, I
boy,
went
oh
with the
boy.
the high like that what you many consider to be the high dollar, like pinnacle of like Havana cigars. Many, right? And then
Mhm.
on the other hand, you got the Monte Cristo number 2. It is the one of the classic all-time favorites, right?
Quintessential.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you're talking about Mount Rushmore of Cuban cigars, I feel like the Monty 2 is on that Mount Rushmore. Now, that being said, the only thing that typically holds back the Bahique is the dollar price because they're insane. They were insane
Yeah.
before the new pricing. They're definitely, way out of my price category. I don't bill by the hour, so it's out of my price category. But it was pricing or availability, and it used to be just availability. So I think if we take availability out, man, I William Cooper is pointing out that Monte Cristo number 2 is a Vitola. Right out of the gate, he's poo-pooing your selection. So,
Yeah. Well,
um, yeah,
that was bound to happen. Might as
that's
well get
bound
it
to
o-
happen.
might as well get it over with.
To be fair, it's also a blend. I think I would have to go Bahique, and it's not necessarily because I love the Bahique more than anything else, but I think, if we're approaching it from the perspective of you have to pick one, right? You can't pick both.
Mhm.
A Bahique is on a table and a Monty 2 is on a table, and that's what we're talking about. It's in front of you. You can only pick one. The other one has to go away. I think I got to go Cohiba Bahique.
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons why like you would go uh um with that choice. The Monte Cristo too is so classical and everything. So before I pick my choice, here's my question to you here, John, on this, kind of just as a quick follow-up. Like which cigar would be harder to replace emotionally, like 5 years from now?
Like if you had a humidor full of cigars,
Yeah.
um, I have a weird attachment to Ramon Allones specially selected, the special selection.
Hmm.
I don't think a lot of people have that much attachment to that as I do. I think it's an underappreciated cigar. PSD4 is the Partagas Serie D number 4. Uh, to me, that's kind of the other sort of quintessential Mount Rushmore of Cuban offerings. Um, Oliver's asking in chat, when's the last time you smoked those? Well, Monty 2 wasn't that long ago because I'm a dirty Canadian and I got a humidor full of Cubans. But a Bahique, oh boy, I mean, it's got to be. I mean, it's at least 5 or 6 years, if it's not 8. And again, it's because the availability of them is so far. But back to your question, um, Partagas would be a no-brainer. If we're talking like entire marcas, if his Monte Cristo, just like if you said all of Monte Cristo, right? So you're setting up a team, right? It's an NFL of Monte Cristo versus Partagas. That would be a very, very tough pick. And I feel like I might go Partagas only because I feel like some of the higher end Partagas stuff is so crazy good.
Hmm.
And I don't think the money high end stuff stands out as well. Um, yeah. What about you?
Well, um well between these two, as far as like emotional attachment, I really don't have any. I've experienced both of them so few times. To Oliver's point, he was asked when's the last time you smoked these. It's been a number of years. It was before Bahike went like so far into the stratosphere. I think when I smoked it, I think I spent $75 American on it, maybe 100, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it was pretty like unreasonably reasonable. That's a term. I'm going to use it. And then had a number of Monte Cristo number 2s. But if I had to pick it, I think I would also pick it for the same pick. I would also pick I pick you. So you would kick. you would kill off Bahike or you would kill off Monte Cristo?
Monte Cristo.
Okay. So I'm going to, yeah, okay. So I just wanted to make sure I understand. So I'm gonna have Monte Cristo be the victor on this because I think
Oh,
there's
okay.
so many people that have that emotional attachment to it. Um, that it
Interesting.
would to that question that I posed, I think it would be the one that people missed because I think that
Because they
well,
haven't smoked a Bahike, they haven't had a chance to form that connection.
yeah, or they've smoked so few because of the price point, that emotional connection for it, and the same reason, and that kind of goes to my answer. Like, I'm glad I smoked the Bahike. I'm glad I had that experience, you know. Um, but at the same time, I think that, having the experience with the Monte Cristos is something that I'll be able to enjoy again, you know,
I
and
gotcha.
and would miss more. So I'm gonna go with Monte Cristo number two, surviving and
All right.
killing off the Cohiba Behike.
I,
And
I think you make a strong argument.
I think I just made fans around the world because now I just made cigars somewhat affordable again.
It's true. Even at the new pricing, man, oh man, yeah. I think the last time I saw Behike pricing, I think they're in the $400 range. Which, look, you can charge whatever you want for a cigar, and as long as someone's going to pay for it, that's how the market works. But man, $400, that's just wild to me.
Jay Davis says he remembers when they were $45 each. So that's even
It's a while ago,
man, what a distant memory, unfortunately. Good God, that's crazy. Um, what a what a story for that cigar. All
right?
right, let's move on to So I specifically chose that one. That was not a random picking. That was
Well done.
specifically chosen by me. So was this one, and there's a backstory to it. Um, so we're going with the uh next cigar death match. We are going with Oliva Serie V Maduro
Oh, you SOB. All right.
versus the Arturo Fuente short story Sungrown.
Oh, wow, you son of a gun. You
All right.
son of a gun.
So I'll let you marinate on it for a second. The backstory, I picked this one. I picked this matchup, and the reason I did was as our audience knows, and as you know, John, I'm a big binge listener of the Developing Palates reviews that you guys do. So I'll go a long time and I'll not listen and then I'll listen to all of them. Like I'll bang out 3 hours worth of reviews. And I love that. I love enjoying it that way rather than kind of just listening to them kind of like on a, every other day or whatever as they kind of get released throughout the week. I like to binge them. It's for me that's fun. And as I got to know and I think it's also a really great peek if anyone ever really wants to understand the four of you really well. It's a really great kind of lens, and you kind of see how that continues in a very short span because they're recorded together, right? So
Hmm.
you get that you can get that feeling, and you kind of get to know not just your palate specifically, but also like your history with cigars, how you've come to enjoy them, like where your backgrounds, like all that cool stuff. I think you get to know yourselves really, really well, and it's funny because the reviews are so short. They're like 9 or 10 minutes each, right? So like
Yep.
it's so brief, but you put them all together, you kind of get this really grand package. So okay, so that being said, the long-winded story behind why you're thinking about this cigar death match here, the reason I chose these two specifically for you was I was surprised, not that they're either one were bad cigars or anything like that, but I was really surprised over listening over all these years that these are two of your favorites, and that you have boxes of both of these cigars, in your humidor, and I don't know why that surprised me necessarily. It like of all the cigars in all of the world, like these two specifically really stood out to you as being so excellent that not just box worthy, but multiple box worthy and saving them over years and seeing them. And so it was kind of cool to kind of hear that. And then it just kind of stored in for this moment perfectly so that I could pin it. I could pit them against each other in a cigar death match, and now you got to
Yeah.
pick one. So
Yeah, I mean it is funny because I'm a self-admitted fanboy of a lot of brands, and I think for good reason. Like I don't think I've ever said I'm a fanboy of this brand and someone's like, "Really? That brand?" But the Oliva Serie V Maduro blend, for whatever reason early on, I really really got into it, and yeah, I collected. What's the earliest box? I think the first year they started doing it was 2008. I think it was 2008. So I've got the 2008s, the 2009s, the 2010s, the 2011s, the 2012s, and the 2013s. And that's the last year I mean, they continue to do it, but that's the last year I stopped doing it because it became less limited and the blend changed and the Vitola changed. And, I'm sure changing tastes, but also like, I said, look, I've got boxes of the blends and the sizes I like, which that may inform the decision tonight. Now, the one thing to say about the short story is I'm pretty sure the Hemingway short story, because this was in the comments, I think it's Cameroon, not sun-grown. I think the sun-grown is the old short story. I think the standard production short story Hemingway is Cameroon, I believe. But I'm not a Fuente expert. I just dabble. Um, but the thing about the Hemingway that makes it so special, and the thing that a lot of people don't like actually, is that format. And for me, I think what makes it so special is, first of all, I'm a nerd because I like the smaller sizes, but it's so hard to get a cigar that can deliver a full cigar experience in a shorter format. And like that's to me, if you want to blend a perfect kind of 30-40 minute cigar, that's probably it. Like I don't like that's kind of the template if you want to improve. So all of that to say, if one of those two had to go away, man, as much as it pains me and you've put me in a difficult spot, it's the Serie V Maduro, and not because it's a bad cigar, but because I think the Hemingway short story is something so special that can't be replicated, right? I can get kind of V Maduro-esque flavors out of something else, but that Hemingway short story, there's nothing else out there like that. It's unique, and its uniqueness is what means it's got a place in my humidor all the time. And so, yeah, I think for me the V Maduro would have to go away. What say you?
it's interesting that you chose that too, because I think that what's different about these two cigars is like one, they're two of the most popular brands in the world. That's
Yep.
notwithstanding. And they're two of the most popular cigars within those portfolios, also notwithstanding. But I think what's really you were keen to really point out is that the Oliva V Maduro has changed over the years. It went from a limited to a
Yes.
regular production. The blend changed, a couple of other things
Yep.
and stuff. And you're right. For me, like very early on, it was a cigar that I absolutely loved. I still enjoy the regular Series B. It's
Totally.
it's one of my it's one of my favorite like regular production cigars, and
Yep.
probably and has been for years, and it probably always will be. It's just it hits a unbelievable sweet spot. Um,
And you know what else is great about that cigar, Bear? That cigar is exceptional in every single size they make it in, from the Lancero all the way to the Gordo. And there's not a lot of cigars out there where you can say they put out a Lancero and it's as good as the Gordo,
yeah,
or vice
yeah.
versa.
I completely agree with that. I even like I said, I even like the Gordo in that size,
Yeah.
in that blend, because I'm not a 60 guy. Um, and I think it's incredible and it's iconic. So, similar to you, I would kill off the Oliva V Maduro. I think the changes over the years kind of really, for me, kind of make it a lot easier to kill off, because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's already changed so much and it's already different. And
Yeah.
yes, sorry, the short story is a Vitola too as well. I did meet in the Cameroon. Sorry, Jay. My God. Uh, everyone's all over me tonight. This
You-
is great.
Man, oh man, you got the peanut galleries just
Yeah,
going nuts tonight.
that's fine. Hey, that's fine. like I said, let's just knock them out early and just take care of it.
Exactly.
But you did say we were going to have great audience participation, so that was
Hmm.
that was well predicted. But I think that what what's going to be interesting about this, I know, like we said, we were going to hurt some feelings tonight, but I wanted to ask this question on this specific matchup.
Mm,
Everyone talks about Padron and Fuente a lot, and those
yes.
two kind of get mentioned in the same breath. But I
Yep.
think Oliva has probably one of the more underrated fan bases.
Yes.
Do you think it even compares to the rabidness of the Arturo Fuente fan base?
I don't. I don't. I mean, I think that there are lots of Oliva fans out there. I think they're quieter. I think I think maybe what it is that Oliva releases stuff. It's readily available. You can just go and buy it. And there's never been this sort of attachment to Oliva as a company in the way, even though George Padron, I don't think people attach themselves to George Padron and Padron. They attach themselves to Padron, the company, which is a
Hmm.
counter to Fuente, because when people think Fuente, I think they really attach themselves to Carlito. And so it's funny that there's sort of the two companies that people mention, as you say, in the same breath, but they're very different companies. And I think people are fans of them for very different reasons. Padron doesn't do limiteds in the same way that Fuente does, right? They do some releases with the family series, but they're not like the Opus X series where they have tons of variations and tons of limited releases that people are hunting. So, I think within that realm, I don't think that Oliva's ever been able to culture that up in the industry. Even in the days when those Series V numbered series were available, people were excited, but I don't think it ever reached the same tenacity, the same sort of
Yeah,
craze almost of
you
the
don't.
Opus X.
Yeah, you don't see like an uproar when like someone says like if someone says, for example, we don't we are not saying this by the way, again to clarify, but if someone said, "Hey, I don't like the Oliva V Siri Maduro, Siri V Maduro. Hey, I don't like the Arturo Fuente short story." There's about 150 Arturo Fuente fans already forking storming at the gates, ready to
Mhm.
just like light your ass on fire. Versus like the
Yep.
Oliva fans are like, okay, well, you're stupid, like or whatever.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so I think there's a more quietness to them. But it's interesting, and I think there's something to be said about the age of both brands, maybe there, but
yeah, that could be
but
it too.
um but still, I think Oliva has one of the more underrated fan bases and underrated loyalty bases for sure. Has to be because of how
I think
popular
so.
they've become. Um, Shout out to Sam Fennell, age 62, man. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Sam.
Thanks for always being a loyal audience member and representing Texans here. Well, thank you so much, sir. And then also Matt Ty in the comments, man. It's been a minute since we've seen a good friend, Matt Ty. I was up in his neck of the woods earlier this week, and by neck of the woods, I mean the state over. I was in the Midwest. I was in Wisconsin earlier this week, so
Nice.
um, got to enjoy some Midwestern love. I really pride myself being from Texas and how friendly we are. Holy
Right.
shit, man! Like people from
Midwest.
Wisconsin, that dude, that is unbelievable.
I
Like.
know, right? Even as a Canadian, there are times where I'm like, like, oh yeah, come on in. What, have a seat. We'll be with you in a moment. And it's just like, man, you're so friendly. It's so friendly. It's almost off-putting at times. And I say that as a Canadian.
It's crazy. It's
Nice
crazy.
weather we're having, don't you? Where are you from? Sounds like you're not from the local here.
Yeah, it's exact. I got that a number of times. So where you from? I'm like, what, did the accent give it away or
Hmm.
what? The two people said this to me. Yeah, well, there was some context there.
Yeah, that's right.
I had two people said that when I threw that. I was like, oh, is it the accent? And
That's
they're,
funny.
yeah, there's some context there. I
There's
was
some
like,
context there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for
oh yeah,
sure.
for sure.
For sure.
All right, we got
Have you
our.
tried the cheese today?
Oh man, I did get. Did you try the cow barrel? The cow beer. Um, God bless, Spotted Cow. It's a farmhouse
Oh,
ale.
yeah, got to.
Farm. God, dude, that was so fucking good.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
can't wait to go back to Wisconsin just to have that
yeah,
beer.
yeah,
So it was
they make good beer.
unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Holy cow. All right.
Indeed.
This one was also intentional. And it was again to get a little get some chippiness out of the peanut gallery and to put you on the spotlight too, John. All right. So here we go. We have the Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust Mi Querida Blue, not a Vitola. Okay. Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust Mi Querida Blue versus the Foundation Tabernacle.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. So you've pitted, I mean, I see what you've done there, right? You've pitted the two people that are talked about because they had the same trajectory, moving on from Drew Estate, starting up their own cigar company at the same time, forever compared, it's like the old hip hop battles back in the 90s, right? You're comparing two artists forever. They'll forever be compared in their trajectory and their releases. Um, that's a really interesting choice because I mean they're very different cigars, right? The blue is milder. I don't know if you'd call that a breakfast cigar, but I think it's a lot more mild, more approachable than a lot of what Steve blends, which is kind of in the medium realm. And the Tabernacle, which is more sophisticated than the blue, in my opinion, but it's also kind of intended to be, and it's more expensive and it's more intense. It's kind of medium full. In some Vitolas, it's actually full. Like the Tabernacle Lancero is a sneaky beast. I remember smoking that with a store
Yeah.
that I was opening, and oh, oh, you know, normally if it was any other cigar from Steve, I'd probably go with Steve. But I think between the two, I think I'd have to vote the blue off the island and
Oh
keep the
shit.
Tabernacle. Yeah,
Oh man, just because of its complexity?
because of its complexity and the
Okay.
and like you said, feelings are going to get hurt. But like between those two, those two cigars are sitting on a table. I got a Tabernacle and a blue. What cigar am I grabbing?
Okay.
And I think I'm reaching for the Tabernacle.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, as you can tell from my reaction, we're gonna have a disagreement here.
Nice,
And it's not,
love it.
and I agree with everything that you said about the difference between the two. Um, in terms of like, I think the Tabernacle is a much more complex cigar.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to it. I think the Marie Carita Blue is a lot more straightforward. It's a lot more in your face.
Yeah.
It also is my favorite Mi Carita that Steve makes.
Okay.
And and I can already smell the Turkey Chaka people coming after me. Look, the Turkey Chaka and I have a very complicated relationship. There, people know about this. Okay, I want to like it. I really do. I promise. Just hasn't hit that. And then I've had the obviously the blacks and then a couple of the other variant, the green variant and stuff like that. So it's my favorite, and because it's my favorite, um, it's gonna stay and it's gonna kill off the Tabernacle, which I can live with that because um, there's so many other Foundation cigars that I truly enjoy and are complex, and I can live
Uh-huh.
without having the Tabernacle ever again. But I don't think if I killed off the Mi Carita Blue, that means I'd be left with the rest of the Mi Caritas, and I just don't think I could live with that.
That's
So
fair. I mean, you can pivot from the Tabernacle to the Wise Man Maduro, and I feel like, if it's a Wise Man Maduro versus Tabernacle, that's going to be a no-brainer. I'm going Wise Man Maduro over the Tabernacle, right? So, you've got a replacement product there.
yeah, and I think like even if you think about like the Tabernacle, whatever the oh God, was it the
Oh, the
C142
C142,
C142?
C143. Yeah, I can't
Uh,
remember the
I
exact.
can't remember the number. It's funny I'm about to say it, but I actually really like that blend. Um, you can tell that I haven't had it recently, unfortunately, but I really like that blend. I really like the Olmecs. I am going to miss the Old Way Wednesday blend, the
Yeah,
original. Oh God, I
it
loved
was
that.
fire, man.
God bless him, so good.
Yeah.
But he just makes such good things. I finally had my first Night Commander. Coop was right; it's unbelievable.
Mm,
Absolutely outstanding. Um, and then the High Clare Castle series too, like everything in that. So the Senator,
Yeah.
the Edwardian, Victorian, they're all fantastic too. So I mean, yeah, there's
Yeah, two very good portfolios. I mean, if you were on a desert island and all you could smoke was Dunbarton and Foundation,
yeah, you'd be
you're
good.
like, I can live with that.
I could
I
live
can
with
live
that.
with that.
I could live with that for the rest of my life. Absolutely. And that's
Now
before
I
you even
am,
get into the like if you get into Steve stuff like the Solitas and
yeah,
all
Sober
that stuff.
Mesa and yeah.
God bless.
Yeah, and I am firmly in the Tricky Tracker camp. I was in the Tricky Tracker camp from day one. When I lit up the first sort of sample, I was like, oh man, there's a lot of people that are not going to like this cigar, but I love this cigar. And that's true. I mean, that's true for a lot of blends that Steve puts out. It's just one of those guys who's got my palate, dialed in very well.
Yeah, I think what's clear about both of them is that um they're incredibly talented, and I think for
Definitely.
everything for everyone that was kind of betting on their potential when they first came back from after their departure from Drew Estate, respectively, for everyone who's betting the futures on that, won hands down, and they both have surpassed expectations, I think, by a large margin.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, not that we could have predicted kind of where they'd go, but I think they both also entered the industry at a time where there was a lot of turmoil. And I think there's probably some question early on about like how they're going to be able to navigate these legislative waters. And I think they navigated them brilliantly. I mean, it doesn't seem to have affected them at all. I'm sure that they were ducks and their feet were going pretty aggressively under the water, but
Hmm.
both of them seem to have come out of it, smelling like roses, proverbially. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So let's go into the fourth matchup. Very similar. Very similar indeed. So let's go back to the source and let's forever
Here we go.
have this discussion.
Oh, I love this discussion. I know. I can read it from your brain. I can read it from your brain. I know what it's going to be.
Drew Estate, Liga Privada, number 9, versus Drew Estate, Liga Privada, T52. Which one dies forever?
It's the classic it's the Montagues and the Capulets. It's torn the industry apart from the very start. I mean, this argument has been had so many times in lounges across the world, just countless people, and it's so funny to me that people they have an opinion, right?
Yeah.
There's very, very few people I've run into, and they're like, "Oh, and I like them both equally."
I'm
I
one of
never
those
get that.
I'm one of those people, but
Are
I'm
you?
raging. I am absolutely one of those people. But it's hilarious, man. When I worked retail, and I know you did too, John, every single person that walked in the humidor had an opinion about it.
Mm-hmm.
It does the ultimate Mason-Dixon line to pull something from Americana. It's
Yep.
the ultimate civil war within its own brand, within an own company.
Which is within its own brand, yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And I think what's interesting about that is if you look at the spec sheet for the cigars, right? So like if you were to say, I'm going to predict what John likes, right? And you look at the spec sheet and you're like, okay, number 9, it's broadleaf, heavy broadleaf, thick broadleaf over Nicaraguan fillers. You got a T52, which is a stock cut Habano over. I think there's a Dominican leaf in there, but it's largely Nicaraguan fillers. John's going to go with the broadleaf because John, loves all the stuff Pete does. He's broadleaf heavy, loves the broadleaf from HVC. Um, but I think, like, to me, there was a shift. Oh, and Jay, that's funny. Jay just read it from my mind. There was a shift early on. If you smoked the early days, and I should have had a Liga. It's okay. Total tangent. I've got some early day Liga 9s in my humidor from 2009, and they're a different blend. They underwent a change, in my opinion, and the 2012, 13 Liga 9s are different than the early day Liga 9s. So, I'm thinking like today, the production Liga 9 T52, and for me, it's always been the T52. It's always been the T52, and I have no qualms about voting the 9 off the island, which would get me lots of hate mail, probably death threats too. Um, but yeah, the T52 is a no-brainer. That's the cigar I love waking up in the morning in Esteli and having a coffee with. Um, yeah, send it.
So just so we're clear, and the hate mail gets directed appropriately. You are killing off forever the Liga Privada number 9.
Hmm. All that
Oh wow.
broadleaf's coming back into production. They can use it for something else.
I think you're right. I don't think as I joked around several times. I was in the store the day of the Drew Estate the Swisher acquisition of Drew Estate,
Yeah.
and I remember and I God bless our customers, and for a long time they I consider them family. Still do. Talk to a lot of them. Um, and the idiotic things that they said about how it
Oh my
tasted
God.
different. I'm like, it's literally the same fucking cigar as it was yesterday, man. It literally has not changed. It hasn't
Yeah.
changed. Um, for as much as I had that conversation very early on, there is something said about 2010 was the first time I had a Liga Privada number 9,
Mm.
and when I smoke a Liga Privada number 9 today. And again, the Liga Privada number 9 today, not a bad cigar at all. Still very
No.
good. Still
So very good.
still incredible. Um, but for me, John, I'm gonna fucking saddle up and we're gonna ride this lifesaver. We're gonna ride this
Nice.
lifesaver to a desert island ourselves, man, because I would kill off the Liga Privada number 9 as well in favor
Yeah.
of the T52. It's been consistent. That to me, I have not. It has not changed for me. Um, and if I, when I think about, sorry, Coop, when I think about a Vitola specifically, when I think about the Liga Privada T52 Bellicoso,
Tell me what it is.
I, I can't see myself living without that cigar. I
Yeah.
can't do it. I can't do it. And I absolutely adore it. And, and that blend is just fantastic. It's unbelievable to me. And I could, and it tells you, man, like I mean, I think the last time I had a Liga Privada number 9, um, it's probably been over a year or so.
Yeah.
Whereas I had a T52 4 days ago, I
Mm.
think. So
I should probably light up a 9. I mean, I've got a staycation going on this week. There's no excuse for me not to light up a number 9. So I think
yeah,
maybe this is the week where I revisit the old school number 9s. But I think you're right. Like the consistency of both has been amazing. I mean, on one hand, I kind of do miss those early romantic days where you're like, you can't get Liga Privada. And if you can see Liga Privada, you can maybe grab a couple. You can't buy a
yeah,
box because
there
they're
was a
so
limited
limited,
purchase. Yeah,
so hard to get. Um, I remember being in Miami and walked into a shop and what were they selling? It wasn't the Velvet Rats, but it was something like the Velvet Rats, and I don't remember what it was, but I was like, how many boxes can I buy? And the guy's like, brother, you can buy as many boxes as you want. And I'm like, don't say that to me because I'll take all your boxes. I'll take every box you've got. I don't care
yeah,
what I pay at the border. Um, but I mean, that goes to show like they managed to ramp up production and make them readily available because people are just losing their minds
yeah.
over them. Um, yeah, what a phenomenal cigar! What a phenomenal line they managed to create.
Yeah, it's funny you said about the Velvet Rat. I remember walking into Fink's San Antonio. I think it was 2014, 2015. So very much during the heyday when they were still limiting purchasing in most retail
Yeah,
shops.
yeah,
And they had a full box of Dirty Rats just sitting there. And I was like, "Hey,
mm,
what's the limit?" And they said,
yeah.
"There's no limit." I was like, "I'm sorry, there's
Yeah.
no
How
limit."
many
And they're like,
boxes of T52 do I need to buy to be
like
eligible to
yeah,
buy?
exactly. And they said, "No, you can have all the Dirty Rats you want." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's go." Bought the entire box. It was crazy. And that was like such a foreign concept. One of the things like you were talking about the scarcity too, like I remember working for Michael's Tobacco of Euless very early on too, and that was what made the annual Drew Estate event so iconic and amazing
Yeah.
was that we would get an allotment and we were allowing customers to buy entire boxes. And so you would just see people come out of the woodwork to buy boxes of Liga Privada number 9 and T52. And
Yeah.
it
And,
was great
and and if
fun.
you've ever had the opportunity to see Jonathan Drew work an event, I mean, it's it's impressive. It's staggeringly impressive to see the lineups and to see him remember people. And there's a few people in the industry who do that, but I've seen him do it a few times by pure coincidence. I've been down in Orlando and he was doing an event. And I'm like, that's random. But I mean, it was amazing to see a lineup out the door down the block of people waiting just to get a signature and chat with him for 5 seconds. And yeah,
I think it's very if you want like a modern day comparison, if you've ever gone to a recent event, a knuckle sandwich event, the lineups
mm,
for Guy Fieri,
totally,
very similar, very
very
similar,
similar.
yeah,
Yeah,
makeup, which is crazy. So, and this is before communication like it is today, like being able to know about
yeah,
this stuff, in short order. All
yeah.
right. Well, there it is, sports fans.
Good picks, Bear.
John and I are killing off the league provider number 9
Whew.
in favor of the T52. We did it. Hey, world
Oh,
peace, world
I'm
peace, world
sweating,
peace.
man. I'm
Right?
sweating.
All
Please send
right,
the hate mail too. Not
all right,
me. Don't send it to me. It's the Bear Show.
all right. So, for the fifth and final one that where you're going first here, and then we're gonna actually take a short break and do a fun segment. We're going with two former number one winners of the Cigar Aficionado Top 25.
Ooh.
So, um, and this is we are taking the My Father, Le Bijou, 1922,
Oh, why are you putting that evil on me, Bear? Why are you putting
ver
that evil on me?
versus the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua.
Well, see, now here's where I get to throw a bit of a shoulder because my father, in their infinite wisdom, has released the new 1922, the limited edition, the new limited edition,
100
annual
años.
release. Yeah, 100 años. So I like in my head that's included in this portfolio, right? Because we're not. And it's amazing because I feel like I thought the Le Bijou was one of the best cigars I've ever smoked. Like it's a Mount Rushmore release. And when I smoked the 100 Años, I was like, how did you manage to improve upon this release and make like it's a different format, right? Because it's a different size, it's a little skinnier, and it's phenomenal. And then you place it against Aging Room, which is, like I don't know how many times Aging Room's been on Cigar Aficionado lists, but it seems like it's every year. It seems like it's an autograt, you know what I mean? It's just like Aging Room's gonna make it because they just, make a good cigar. But Le Bijou for me, there's a lot of emotional attachment. That was kind of when I went from being a beginner cigar smoker to sort of getting into the more advanced cigar smokers. Le Bijous were like an auto purchase. That was like an auto ship to me. And so just based on the emotional attachment alone, I would have to get rid of the Aging Room and keep the Le Bijou.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I when my audience remembers like that they feel like I probably have like a lot of beef against the Le Bijou. And my only beef was that, my beef isn't with Le Bijou. My beef was with Cigar Aficionado because like 3 years earlier, it was like number 5 or something on the
Yeah.
list. And then it suddenly was number 1 a few years later. And I was like, how does that even happen?
It's the
Like,
same cigar, guys. It's the
it's
same cigar.
like, what? I don't get it. Like, my, the
I
math
assure you
isn't
the tobacco
mathing.
has not changed that much.
And so that was probably my that's where I got this kind of reputation as a Louis Bijou hater, and nothing could be further from the truth. I actually really like it. I was in the booth. I was in the booth the year that Raphael released the Quattro Nicaraguan. Um, And Coop and I were there together, and we lit up that cigar. And I mean, we were both blown away in flavor and body because that cigar is a powerhouse. But we
Yeah.
were also kind of looked at each other with like this particular night. We're like, this cigar has got some staying power. This cigar is going to go
Mm.
places. And sure enough, it did a few years later for him, which was really great and a testament to what Raphael put together with that. And I think all that notwithstanding, I think it's a fantastic cigar. It's a cigar that I like to revisit. Particularly what he's done with it with like the Sonata and the Concerto.
Yep.
I think those are really good riff offs of the original too. But for me, that's the stronger question, right? Because without the predecessor of Cuatro
Yep.
Nicaragua, you don't necessarily get the Sonata, you don't necessarily get the Concerto. So you have to
Yep.
think if we're gonna really kind of start to peel back the layers here, like, wait a second,
You're
if I
killing an
kill
entire
if
tree.
yeah, if I kill that off, does that mean that like what happens, right? Now
Yeah.
we're not going back in time, so this isn't like, this isn't Back to the Future or anything. I'm not getting in my DeLorean, but like and necessarily, creating this new angle of history. We're just talking about from today. But um I think I still have to kill off the Quacha Nicaragua compared to the Le Bijou because I think that um I, this is now here's my bold take of this. I think the My Father brand is considerably weaker without the Le Bijou in its
Oh,
portfolio.
no question. No
Like,
question. That is the crown, one of the crown jewels of My Father.
mhm. I think it just is. I think, and it's,
Yeah.
and and I think I have too much respect for the Garcia family to say like, let's make your portfolio considerably weaker too. And I think the cigars I enjoy the cigar more. Not much more. I think they're both on pretty
Yeah,
clear
those are
playing
very
fields for.
competitive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, but I thought
And
that'd be fun to
excuse me.
pit two number ones against each other.
Right? And I will say to your point about it being fifth and then number one, I don't think it needed both brands would have been completely fine without that recognition. Like I feel like it's sometimes you see the recognition and people say, well, that's the thing that catapulted that cigar in the industry. And I don't think either of those cigars needed that. I don't think that was I like to me that was more of a recognition of those brands and those releases. And if that had never happened, I think both brands would have still been the juggernauts that they still are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's get on to the next segment in our first fun segment for the night, which is, of course, our presidential trivia segment, which
Love
is
it.
brought to you by United Cigars. Are you ready to live the United lifestyle? Launch your palate voyage with United Cigars. You can celebrate over 250 years of excellence with a red anchor or experience elegance with La Giana Havana. Rekindle the spirit of 1776 and light up the skies with a firecracker, then celebrate honor, pride, and accomplishment with a gold star. Jet set the globe in casual luxury with Atabey, Byron, Alfonso, Bandolero, or now the Nelson line from Selected Tobacco. Don't just smoke. Smoke United. United Cigars since 1901. United we smoke. Now, we're going to stay on theme today. There's actually no question, John. There are questions, John, but they're not trivia questions. I thought we would just kind of continue to have this fun.
All
So
right.
I picked some presidents that are going to compete in a death match. And
Oh boy.
I thought this was fun to play with a Canadian too. So I thought, what the hell? Like, let's just hurt a lot of people's feelings. So I'm looping in our neighbor to the north to kind of uh, tee up these death matches between presidents. And since I've actually read the book How to Fight U.S. Presidents, which actually articulates in great detail how to fight each U.S. president, I feel like I have
All
the
right.
advantage here. But I'm going to go ahead and ask the questions of you. So let's go with it's my number one and my number two against each other, man. Death match forever. Abraham Lincoln versus Teddy Roosevelt. Here we go.
Mm, wow. I mean, talk about two guys who shaped the history of the United States. What's interesting is that I think if we take it at a literal level, um, I think Lincoln would have taken Teddy. Because if I remember right, Lincoln was a bare knuckle boxer, and I think he had
Wrestler.
Oh, he's a wrestler.
Wrestler.
That's right.
Yeah,
He's a
he's the
wrestler,
wrestler.
and he was a pretty big dude. I mean, Teddy was a monster, and obviously, anytime you can get shot while you're giving a speech, and you're just like, you know
Yeah,
what? We'll deal with it afterwards. It's like, okay, so the guy is a literal badass.
yeah,
There's very few people on earth who can be shot and then be like, well, we'll deal with that after. We got important stuff to do right now. Um, man, I mean, we could do 2 hours on how the trajectory of the United States would have changed. Um, I think gut instinct. Oh God, what a terrible decision. I think I'd have to say goodbye to Teddy because I just feel like Lincoln was just, you talk about U.S. turning points.
mhm,
Imagine the change to the United States without Lincoln as president.
yeah,
Um, I
yeah.
mean, neither choice would be good, but um, yeah, I think I have to say goodbye to Teddy and keep Lincoln.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. I think that if you're going to go on the fun route with this, yeah. So Teddy was the boxer, Lincoln was the wrestler, and
Teddy
in
was the
fact,
boxer.
yeah,
That's right. I got
Teddy
that
was the
backwards.
boxer. So Lincoln actually competed in like something over like the number varies depending on what chronicle of history you read or biography you read or of him, but it's somewhere between 100 and 300 matches, right? Which is that's a huge number in difference.
That's a
But the
huge
point
number.
that but the point is he was undefeated.
Yeah.
He never lost. He never lost a wrestling match. So like I kind of fast forward to 2026 and you think about what's popular today. Well, it's UFC, right? It's the no holds barred, let's fight it out with kind
Yeah.
of a no rules kind of context. And yeah, like I firmly believe that, Teddy could wallop a punch on Lincoln, but I think that, Lincoln's a little shifty and he'd be going for the takedowns and just
Yeah. And I think
wrestling
if
that guy
Teddy
to the
got
ground.
if Teddy got taken down, and we've seen this in UFC fights, if Teddy gets taken off his feet, that's it. Like like that's his tool. His tool is to stand at range and punch. And when you take that tool away to an experienced wrestler, I think it's game over.
Yeah. So I think I give the advantage to Lincoln as well. I think yeah. I I think a lot of people there's this if you look at paper and you're like, well, look at everything that Teddy accomplished in the short time that when he was
Yeah.
president, but he was president for so little time.
Yeah.
But they were actually president for about the same amount of time. Teddy
Which is
took over.
weird to think about, right? Because people have it in their head that Lincoln was president for a very long period of time, but he wasn't.
Yeah,
It's just a lot happened during his tenure.
yeah. So he secured, both won technically real. Well, Teddy won an election. He was appointed president after he took over after McKinley's assassination, and then won an
Right.
election. And then Lincoln obviously won re-election, and then didn't make it. Passed didn't make it a few months into his next term before he was assassinated. So um, they were about president for about the same length of time. But I think Teddy's very underrated for how he shaped modern American history with
Totally.
his anti-trusts and what he did for labor in this country, what he did for
Yeah.
business in this country, how he protected children, child labor laws, what he did for conservation, the environment. When the concept of environmentalism as we know it is very much is a late 20th century, 21st century conundrum and
Yeah.
discussion point. But he saw that very early in the 20th century, like, hey, this is
Yeah.
something we need to protect. And God bless him for it, man, because like who knows, if Teddy hadn't come along, Yellowstone, Yosemite, these places that
Yeah,
are
I was gonna
adorable.
say, wasn't it Teddy that established the U.S. park system?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's huge.
yeah, it's
No, that
unbelievable.
was Woodrow. Sorry, that was Woodrow. I've got my wires crossed.
But he
But he
pioneered
pioneered
it.
the process that allowed that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
He championed it, which was interesting that, the person of his opposition was the one that actually started it, but still.
yeah. And I mean, to be fair, the number of presidents who have been appointed when their predecessor passed away in office and then were able to successfully be elected, that's very, very hard to do, which is weird because you'd think, they've had an opportunity to prove themselves and demonstrate
Yeah.
what they can do as a president, but it freaks people out.
Yeah, for sure. So, so yeah, I would Lincoln over Teddy for me. Next up, this one might seem obvious to a lot of people, but maybe not. Ronald Reagan versus Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Oh, interesting.
And we're going to call out the elephant in the room. Yes, Roosevelt was in a wheelchair. We get that. Okay. This is a death match. But it's not always about body and strength sometimes. You got to think about it. But I actually chose these two specifically, John, because I thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
Franklin Delano Roosevelt is the reason that we have term limits. And it was the Republicans who were really pushing for term limits because obviously
yeah.
FDR was a Democrat. And when Ronald Reagan came around, like there was this outcry for like, let's get those damn term limits. Let's get rid of those term
Hmm.
limits because they wanted to elect him to a third term, or they wanted to run him for a third term. So yeah, they were chosen specifically, but there's a lot of discussion about, FDR was um FDR is strongly considered to be that illustrious fifth president that
Yep,
would be on Mount Rushmore. And then
yep,
there's kind of a very short list of like people that swap these two interchangeably.
yep.
Put Ronald Reagan or FDR 5 or 6, 5 or 6, 5, right? So like these two are kind of like the next, if we were to make more space on the mountain, so to speak, that these two
Hmm.
would kind of be like the leaders in the clubhouse, so to speak, to occupy that next spot. So it was very intentional, but I thought it was an interesting point. So I'd like to.
And and it's tough because you talk about two presidents who were in the United States at vastly different eras, right? Like you've got one who's at the end of the century and one who's still a little bit like Teddy, kind of shaping the future of the century at the sort of kind of start middle. And of course, FDR is always going to be associated with the New Deal. You know,
Yeah,
that's
bringing
just
us out
how
of
it
the
is.
depression, bringing us out of the
Bringing out of the
depression, leading through
right,
World War II. Yeah,
get industry back up and running. Changing the tax structure of the United States. I mean, he did a lot. And I mean, you could do 3 hours on, did the New Deal actually change the United States, or what? Was it things that were already in place, and he just shepherded the, like that's there's entire courses on that whole conversation. Um, but I think that Reagan is in an unfortunate position of being a later president versus FDR as an earlier president.
hmm
That I'm gonna kick Reagan off. He's gonna be turfed, and it's unfair because I think it's just by the very sake of FDR came first and had to deal with different things,
hmm
and if you switch their positions around, how very different the United States would have been. Um, I think I'm gonna have to say keep FDR. Coop's
Yeah.
gonna give me an earful, but keep FDR and get rid of Reagan.
Well, I think there's something to be said that's really interesting is that Ronald Reagan cleaned up the final mess that FDR created, which was the Cold War.
Right, right.
So I think there's something to be said about that and to put into Ronald Reagan's kind of win column. But if you're gonna tally up wins and losses, right? And these are three very huge deals in American history. Navigating the Great Depression and getting us out of it,
Hmm.
and navigating World War II and emerging victorious on two fronts, which is historically
Yeah,
punished that kind of hubris, right? It punished
yeah.
Hitler in the same fucking war. So um that was kind of the most interesting that's the most interesting thing about it. So you got two wins for FDR, and you're like, well, he needed 4 terms to do it. Well, yeah, but I mean, who else was going to do it at the time? And Ronald Reagan, who ends the Cold War, the longest war in our nation's history. And so, but if you tally up the wins and the losses, you got 2 versus 1, although they were all major wins and stuff. And you could certainly say one created the other. So, but I'm with you, John. I'd have to say FDR over Ronald Reagan.
And it is a little unfair in the sense that, anytime you have a wartime president, right? That's a really tough matchup because
Yeah,
almost by default, anyone who can navigate a nation through wartime it is already got a massive advantage, right? Because it
yeah,
wasn't a disaster, it didn't result in so many catastrophes that could have come as a result of that. Um, so you're already kind of at a which again, that's why he got reelected. Is like, well, you're navigating through war, you're fixing these problems. It's it's as long as you're not a disaster, it's pretty easy to be a popular president during wartime.
right. Well, and it's interesting though, even though he was victorious in World War One, I'd pick Ronald Reagan over Woodrow Wilson any day.
Right.
Any day. Like, I think that I think that in a death match there, it's Ronald Reagan over Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, I think he was a
So,
better statesman.
hmm absolutely. I think he also it is if as complicated as international politics was during the Great First World War. I mean, I think Ronald Reagan had a tougher time of it.
No question. No question. I mean, geopolitically, the 80s was I mean, that was just
Fucking
landmine
minefield.
after landmine. Oh my God, yes. Yeah. No comparison whatsoever. I mean, you know, yeah. Totally different challenges.
Yeah,
Woodrow, no offense to Woodrow, but I don't think he wouldn't have had a hope of being able to navigate that landscape.
not a
Sorry, bud.
no.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that was our United Presidential Trivia segment, which wasn't trivia at all, but it was our United Presidential Trivia for today. Uh, be sure, don't just smoke, smoke United. United Cigar since 1901. United, we smoke. All right. Let's get back to some cigar death matches here, John. Now,
Do it.
I'm going to name the death match, and then on these next 5, I'm going next. All right. So here we go. Let's start off with our sixth death match. And I think if you think about it, you'll understand the context. I did choose these two to be pitted together. We have the Aladino 85th anniversary Reserva Toro versus the Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust Sobremesa Solita Red.
Oh, that's tough. You've got a little bit of recency bias there too, because this Leader Red's been around for a little while, and the 85th is, pretty new. So that's interesting. That's an interesting aspect.
Do you know the significance of it? That these two specifically being pitted
No, why
against
did
each
you pick them?
Well, the Aladino 85th Reserva by JRE was Reserva, not Toro, by the way, just the Reserva, excuse me. I think it was
Yeah,
only one in Vitol anyway, but sorry. Just the Aladino 85th Reserva, excuse me, versus the Sobremesa Solida Red by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. The reason I chose those two is the first was your number 1 cigar of the year for developing palates, and the second was the number 2
easy pick.
of last.
Yeah,
So I had number 1 and number 2 against each other. So I wanted to see, and I know that there's other people in the tallying up of that conversation that makes them number 1 and number 2. But I wanted
yeah.
to see how John's choice would shake up, if it would line up with the way 2025 ended up for you guys, or if it would differ. So that's why I picked those two. But for me, this one's a little bit easier. I love JRE, and I love a lot of the Aladino products. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I think but for me, like, I think the 85th Reserva anniversary Reserva um is actually pales in comparison to some of its counterparts that exist inside that
Oh,
portfolio. Um,
interesting.
I like the Maduro better. I like the Cameroon better. I like the
Wow.
Fuma Noche better. I like the original Reserva better. Uh, um, I'm probably the only one that I think that beats is the Connecticut for me personally, but um, and I think the Salida Red is probably one of Steve's best in his very very stacked portfolio. So
I see
so
where
for
you're
me
going.
so for me it was an easy pick. I'd kill off the Aladino 85th Reserva. Plus, there's plenty of other JRE products that I can hang my hat on and enjoy. So I wouldn't miss it. So that's why Solita Red wins this cigar death match.
You make some annoyingly good arguments here because I'm just thinking of what have I lost, but you're pointing out which is a disturbingly offensive and successful argument of yes, but what is left? What is left if it's taken away? And you're right. JRE, you got the Cameroon, the Connecticut, the Maduro, which are all bangers and all available at absurdly approachable prices. And I've been saying for years, maybe too approachable, but I don't want to say that too loudly.
Exactly.
Uh, they're phenomenal deals, and even Coop might be able to admit that even in the Lancero Vitolas, they're all bangers. Like you know, and that's a tough thing to do to take a blend and put it in a skinny and still come out with something really great. Um, so I have to agree with your argument is that the 85th was, I mean, really impressive release, but taking it away, as sad as it is to see it go, Jerry's got lots of other offerings that are extremely strong. And this is just the crown on those offerings. It doesn't weaken the rest of the portfolio by removing it. But if you took the Solita Red away, it does hurt the portfolio of Dunbarton. So
Mhm.
sadly, I have to agree with you. You've convinced me. That was a really good argument.
Wow, okay, cool. I think that's why I wanted to switch these off too, is like I wanted us to give us enough credence to like, okay, maybe you can sway me.
Yeah,
Maybe if I'm really on the fence, if this one's really hard and we're no there's no ties and there's no it depends, right? We're all picking one. But if we want to feel better about our decision, it's better if the other person can make an argument there. Um yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I was a big fan of the Solito, which was the original Sober Mesa um line, and I think that these offshoots have really everything from the Brulee Blue
yeah,
to the Solita Red just are really building on some excellent you know um portfolio shapings from Steve, so doing a
yeah,
good job.
yeah. I agree.
All right, so let's go on to number 7. This one also, so I want you to think this one also has some DP archival um, significance to it. So we've got Cigar Death Match number 7, the Romacraft Cro-Magnon PA versus the Patina Anniversary.
Oh, oh, that's tough. So the PA, of course, is an offshoot because the broadleaf became hard to find. The BA, the broadleaf is the original. The PA is the sort of reblended. Patina is a smaller portfolio, right? This was kind of, I don't know, you wouldn't call it a crown jewel, but it was supposed to be a sort of celebratory anniversary release. So you got a bit of a portfolio problem there because if you take away the patina, you don't, it's not a 16 marca offering in that brand. But you take away the PA and you've still got three other variations of the Chromag. That's a
Hmm.
tough matchup.
Yeah, and you know the significance, right?
Nope.
Both were number 1 cigars for developing palates. 24 and
Well,
23.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing about the Cro-Mag is the number of people. It is there was a little bit of a Liga 9 T52 argument because I think a lot of people have strong opinions about Pennsylvania,
Oh yeah.
which I get because you know Pennsylvania isn't Connecticut broadleaf. Like they don't like it's not the same thing. They're totally different. I mean, they're not Connecticut shade to broadleaf different, but they're radically different in what they bring to the table. And I think most people gravitate towards broadleaf over Pennsylvania. I think like if you put a Pennsylvania
Mhm.
next to a broadleaf, I think most people, most cigar smokers will go Connecticut broadleaf over Pennsylvania.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fair. I think I'm one of the few people that I know that really like enjoys Pennsylvania.
Mm,
Like it's not an exception. Like when they like the
yeah.
cigar, it's more like, hey, yeah, I like it. I like Pennsylvania.
Well, I think a big part of that is, Skip put in the work, right? Like, so it always ends up being this conversation of like, there's a handful of people who have done it really well, and it's always the same people we talk about. It's like James and Skip. And I'm trying to think who else has used Pennsylvania really effectively, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But like, these are projects where they've put in the work and they've done it in a way that blends out the worst qualities of the tobacco, but also exemplifies the best qualities of that tobacco. And I think that's really hard.
Yeah.
Broadleaf, I think, is a little more forgiving. You can put broadleaf in a blend, and you can maybe not have the best blend for broadleaf, and it still delivers.
Yeah, I think you could have like to make compared to beer, like broadleaf is like an IPA, right? Because you can hide
Yeah,
mistakes in it
yeah,
and it still
that's
tastes
a good
like an
way to put it.
IPA. It still tastes like broadleaf,
Yeah,
CAO sessions being the exception to that. Um, but that notwithstanding, I think that you could, like you said, you can make a broadleaf cigar then like not as good, and it still would be good because
yeah.
it's just a superior wrapper. Whereas Pennsylvania has it's just a little bit more polarizing, man. It's like the Omen Tepe of rappers.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, you can't hide the flaws, right? The flaws are going to be front and center. So if that blend is lacking or it's not quite balanced, you're going to know immediately. You're going to know immediately off the first couple puffs.
Yeah.
That's an interesting matchup.
Okay.
I'm
So
curious to
I
hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go first. It's easy this is easy for me. I'm picking the patina anniversary to stay, and I'm killing off
Mm,
the Cro-Magnon PA, the Roma Craft PA. So Roma Craft Cro-Magnon PA. Excuse me, I'll put it all together. So this is there. This is a. I have a very strong opinion about this, and I know Skip's gonna jump all over me about this, but I really don't care. Um, I I appreciate why he had to put out the disclaimer of why he was releasing the cigar. He wasn't releasing it as a replacement necessary, but he kind of was,
mm,
meaning like, hey, the broadleaf that we normally need, it's not up to our standards. We can't get it.
yep,
So we're for the time being, we're putting that on the shelf and we're
yep,
releasing this, where we can get it, and we've put together a blend that is good and is great, and it can exist within that same family. Cool. Like I said, appreciate it. I thought the explanation was like unwarranted. It wasn't necessary. You could have just said like, "Hey, we're releasing a new Promag. Here it is. It's the PA, and here it's our new offering. And yeah, oh yeah, you can get the PA now, and you can't get the other one now. Yeah. Sorry, like you know, no apologies needed and necessary and stuff like that. And I think I would have enjoyed the PA more if I just like had that, like I didn't have the explanation behind it.
yeah.
Um I mean I thought the cigar was good. But and I'm just still like the original a lot more. I
I
mean
mean, the
just hands
original
down.
is,
But
it's a
that's
it's a
but
great release.
that's not the death match that's occurring. I and
That's not the
that
death match.
And that is not the entire reason why I'm picking the patina anniversary to stay up. I think the patina anniversary is like it is for a smaller young brand, like what Mo is developing and everything, I think every at bat counts, to use a baseball metaphor.
Yes.
And I think there are very few brands that have hit home runs every chance he gets, like Mo has done. He's been methodical, he's been slow pacing, he's been deliberate and decisive with each of his releases, and this is no exception. And but the you know, I have there's other stuff under the other Roma Crafts portfolio that I'd be like, hey, there's this at least, there's this at least. With patina, you don't get that many swings. So, and you got to keep the good stuff around as much as possible. And this is certainly it. I wouldn't say, to your point, D, we've used the reference crown jewel a couple of times. I don't think it was probably the crown jewel that he necessarily wanted it to be, or that others expected it to be or wanted it to be in terms of an
Right.
anniversary cigar, but I thought it was still amazing. Still enjoyed the hell out of it. And still think it's a truly fabulous cigar. But that's the one I would keep.
But I mean, there is, to your point, there is enough offerings, right? You've got the Baca, you've got we're assuming in this case, the original broadleaf Chromax still available. You got the Neanderthal, um, EC, Intemperance. There's a lot of
PA
other
Sumatra.
offerings.
Yeah.
PAs, yeah. There's a lot of other offerings that are still available to fill that void where, Patina is a smaller brand and they have less facings and they have less offerings. And I agree. I think Mo's anniversary Maduro was, I think it caught us by surprise. It would have been really interesting if we would have had the ability to smoke that blind at the time, like we're doing now, to see if it's still hitting the same way. But I think we're still pretty critical, and I think if it wouldn't have delivered, it wouldn't have gotten a number one, because it's hard to get a number one.
Yeah.
That's a gauntlet. That's a gauntlet in and of itself. So yeah, it's a stellar release. I mean, both of them are stellar releases, but you can only pick one because that's how the game is played. And I agree.
Yeah, you'd agree with that? Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yep.
I was going to ask you this at some point. So since you brought it up, John, I was going to ask you what, now that you've got still more time with non-blind reviews
Yeah.
versus time with blind reviews,
Yeah.
what's more fun?
Oh, the blind reviews are so much fun. So much more fun. And I think that's just an element of time because I think, to coin a phrase, we're getting a little jaded in the sense that, it gets harder and harder the more you know. And, we're not encyclopedias of tobacco, but when you've smoked thousands and thousands and thousands of cigars, and then you see a blend come up or a brand come up, and you're like, oh, okay, I got to review this cigar, right? You're already kind of in that place where you're like, I'm not excited. And you shouldn't be, right? Because the whole point is, like, you're already setting yourself in this position where you're like, I'm not excited. So, like, I'm already biasing that review because I've already looked at the brand or the band or the release, and I've already cast a judgment without even lighting it up.
Right.
And so when it's blind, I mean, yes, to the jokes that I make on the review, there are times where you look at it and you're like, okay, well, obviously I know what this cigar is. I'm not an idiot. This isn't the first time I've smoked a cigar. So you'd have to be truly devoid of any experience to not know what the cigar is. But there's plenty of times where I look at it and I'm like, I have no idea what the cigar is.
Right.
And to Aaron loving to throw me under the bus, there are times where I'm completely off on even what the wrapper tobacco is, which should be relatively easy to guess, but it turns out not always easy to guess. So, for us, I enjoy now the blind process because it brings that excitement back. There's that element of unknowing. There's the element of hoping to find that gem, in the group, in the list, in the pile. and the reveal process to show how wrong I am is fun, but also to be like, you know, maybe it's a CAO, or maybe it's a brand that I've never heard of, and or maybe it's a brand that I thought I didn't like. That's the one I'm actually waiting for, is to be like, it's this particular brand that you've said in the past you don't enjoy, and you just rated it really highly, so now you have to defend yourself.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's get on with the next matchup. And as you're considering this one, um, I want to pose the question: is this the hardest matchup of the night? So I
Ooh,
want you to answer the question and then also answer the question: is this the hardest matchup of the night?
okay.
Okay. So we have Padron, 1926 versus Padron, 1964.
I don't think it's the hardest matchup of the night, and I'll tell you why. Because I think what's always separated those two offerings is price point, not the blend. I don't
Hmm.
think there's anyone out there that believes that either of those cigars is inferior. I think most people generally have an opinion if they smoked both of which one they prefer. And not everybody prefers the 1926. There's lots of people that prefer the 64. I'm kind of on the fence. I feel like both are excellent cigars. Um, but I think, the 64 goes into a category of pricing where it's kind of in that super premium is not really the space, but it's in that premium, upper premium category.
Hmm.
So, Padron's got a lot. Padron does a great job, I think. Not that Padron needs me touting them because they're obviously a very successful brand, but they've done the great three pillars, right? They've got their 1000 series for the budget smoker. They've got their 64 series for someone who's looking for something more sophisticated. They've got their 26 series, which is their kind of premium category. And then they have their family reserve series, which is kind of more of this
The uber
broaching the super
luxury, yeah.
premium.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they have done a fantastic job of just quietly building those four pillars. And what's funny about that is the number of people who will be a 26 smoker, but they might still pick up a 4,000 or a 2,000 because they're like, it's still a good cigar,
Yeah.
even though it's $8 versus $24 or $23 or whatever a 26 is going for these days. Um, So no, I don't think it's the hardest matchup. I think it's an interesting matchup, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
the hardest one so far. What do you
Yeah.
think?
So for a long time, I really, when this was actually the first thing I put down, but I put it somewhere in the middle of our list tonight.
Hmm.
But this was actually the first, because I really wanted to think about it, because for a long time I've always said that I actually like the 1964 series more than the 1926.
See, there you go.
And and then I started really thinking about it in preparation for tonight, and I started thinking about, is that because of the price? And the answer is absolutely yes. I think it is because while both cigars are fantastic, I don't dislike the 1926. I want to make that clear,
Right,
obviously.
right,
But is it 10, $15 better than a 1964? And the answer is no,
right.
it's not. So what do I reach for more often than not? I reach for a lot of 1964s. And so I was really, it was kind of like this really kind of eye-opening moment and really being honest with myself about that. And it was like, okay, it's always been about a price kind of conversation.
Right.
And, so I started thinking about posing the question, okay, so I've got a cigar death match and now I have to kill off one of these brands. And it's interesting of where I landed, because I think, to your point, while they've built four pillars strong and now we're knocking off a pillar tonight, no matter how we slice it, um, I think that the jump from 64 to the family series is not necessarily as tantamount or as large as it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, And I think that the family series can be just as strong without the 1926, but I don't think that the Padron portfolio can be as strong without the 64. And because I smoked more 64s than 26 over my lifetime, I gotta lean on that history. But it was a really interesting kind of inner dialogue that I had with myself because it was a realization of like, oh shit, it really wasn't necessarily that like because I can't even definitively say that the 1926 is a weaker cigar. It's not. I think if you backed me into a corner and said smoke these two, I'd probably say the 1926 is a better cigar,
Right.
but it's not that much better. So that's why I smoke 64. So that's the reasoning there. The reason why I'm killing it off is I think that the Family Reserve stands on its own and doesn't need the 26 as much as it needs the 64. And so that's why I would kill off the 1926.
Yeah, I think you'd have a tough time if you took out the entire 64 series to get someone to trade up from a 1000 series to a 1926. I think that's too much of a gap to move up. I think if you kill out a 26 series, to get people to step up from the 26 to the Family Reserve is not that big of a jump, right? I think once you've already moved into that price category, I don't think moving up to a Family Series is that big of a deal, honestly. I think you've already kind of decided that price is not the factor. And so, like you, I've obviously smoked way more 64s than 26s. And I agree that if, you know, you put them on a table, 64, 26, I'm probably going to reach for the 26.
Yeah.
But I also have to, if I had to pay for it, and we've always had this conversation of like, when you start to do the math, the sort of goodness per dollar value, is it 150% or 125% more good than a 64? That's where that goodness to price category starts to fall away. Where no, if it was a value, and I don't remember what the price gap is, but call it like 1.25 or 1.3 64s to 126. As a value guy, I'm going to go for the 64. And I think there's also that aspect of like the 64 it's just such a solid. Oh, Jay's given us price
Yeah,
breakdowns. Is
yeah,
that right? Yeah.
he's bringing the numbers. The
He's
metrics are
bringing the
coming in.
numbers. I love numbers. 80th over any 64. 64 has to go. Wow.
Yeah.
Jay would get rid of the 64. I don't know, man. The thing is, I don't think the Principe in the 64 is really being produced anymore, which is a shame because that's actually one of my favorite
Yeah.
64 offerings. But I understand in the current market, Principe is an odd Vitola that a lot of people don't gravitate towards. I'm one of the weird ones that do. Um, I'm not a retailer, but yeah, I would also have to keep the 64 and turf the 26. I think just from a value proposition statement alone, I could talk someone into the Family Series. It would be really hard for me to get somebody to move up from a 1000 series to a Family Series without that 64 to bridge that space.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
this next one's pretty similar. Okay. And it's interesting. I did not pick this matchup, but I think I did this was one of the random matchups, but
Oh,
I put them together. So it's kind of funny. Because and it's funny that it kind of followed this one. I randomized the order too, and with a couple of key move arounds that I've done, but this is where it kind of landed, and this is the matchup that it landed on. So we have the Diamond Crowned, a Julius Caesar Diamond Crown Natural, so the original, not the Maduro, or the Maximus, versus the Diamond Crowned, the J.C. Newman Diamond Crown Julius Caesar.
okay. Give me that one more time.
Okay, so the death match is against the J.C. Newman Diamond Crown Natural, the original Diamond Crown,
Okay.
versus the J.C. Newman Diamond Crown Julius Caesar.
Hmm.
So you basically have the original, right? And then you had the formed offshoots. You have the Maduro, then you have the Maximus, then you have the Black Diamond, of course, that came later. Then you have the Julius
Yeah.
Caesar. But today we're pitting the original versus the Julius Caesar. So,
Hmm.
um, so for me, this one was pretty easy. Um, and I really don't have any sophisticated argument behind it. I really didn't. I pushed it. It was kind of like I threw these both in there, and I thought that they would get tossed into like against other cigars, and they didn't, which was
Yeah,
even
yeah, yeah.
funny. But this one's a little too obvious for me. I think the Julius Caesar is a superior cigar. Um, yeah, you can argue that it wouldn't have happened necessarily without the original, and I get that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think that I would absolutely keep the Julius Caesar, and I would,
Wow.
if we lost the original, it wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Interesting.
Because I like the Maduro, I like the Maximus, like the Black Diamond. Um, I like the new Maximus too, the reblend. I like that too. I'll miss the old blend because I really enjoyed that too, but I like the new blend a lot. And then but Julius Caesar, man, it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite cigars, period. So yeah, it was an easy choice for me.
So this is one where I'm definitely using the bear argument where I go, the natural is just such a it's just such a foundational cigar for their brand. Not that the Julius Caesar isn't, because obviously it represents so much of the culture and the history of the company. But man, I just can't imagine Diamond Crown without the original series in their portfolio. Like, I just feel like that would leave such a gap. To me, this is the bear argument of like, no question, the Julius Caesar is the better blend, right? Sophistication, more complex, more
Yeah.
body. Um, but man, if you were to take away the OG, as Jay puts it, I just I think that'd be too much of a vacuum within that brand. Like obviously both are gonna hurt, right? You take away
Yeah.
both, either or is gonna hurt. I'm using the bear logic where I think losing the OG Diamond Crown is too much of a hurt to the brand over the Julius Caesar. I think I would have to kill the Julius Caesar and keep the OG Diamond Crown.
Yeah, I mean, I can't change my answer, so I can't. But like I think the more I think about it too, when you think about the OG, it is kind of the true north of that brand, right? So like,
Yeah.
you know, JC Newman has made some, some interesting choices over the last 20 years. Everything from their recent flavor offering, the introduction of the brick house,
Hmm.
and making that a prominent part of their portfolio and kind of like living with that.
Wouldn't
Uh,
have that have been an interesting matchup, the Brick House versus the Julius Caesar?
right, exactly. Um, but Diamond Crown kind of stands on its own, and you could argue that the OG is the true north of the company in a very real way. But Jay agrees with you. Kill off the Caesar, which oh man, that
which
would
which
that
he
would just
says is the best seller. So that would be kind of painful at the till,
yeah
unfortunately.
yeah a little bit. But man, I just yeah, for me, if you told me I could never smoke a Julius Caesar again, but you could never smoke a Diamond Crown OG again, I would just it kind of goes back down to that for me on in this particular argument. Like that I could live without the other as much
Fair
as I
enough.
like it. So, all right. All right. So, there's some significance on this one. So, I picked two of my number one cigars of the year, both within the
Oh,
same brand. So, there's only two brands that have repeated as have had two number one cigars in my list's history. One of them was Espinosa, the other was Christoph. And
mm,
for our 10th cigar death match, we're pitting Christoph against each other. So the matchup is, of course, the Christoph Vengeance
mm.
versus the Christoph Viente 20th anniversary Viente.
Oh, Man, now I got to ask you a question. How does that rank in terms of difficult matchups in what we've done so far?
I wanted to make it hard. So yeah, this is probably like if you told me like so the two Espinosas that won were the Espinosa Crema and the
Yep.
Espinosa Habano, which if you told me that's an easier one for me. Like I just
Mm-hmm.
like as popular as the Crema is and everybody loves the Crema, like the Habano is it
Got to
for
be the
me.
Habano.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the quintessential Espinosa. Yep.
yeah. So like
Too
I
easy.
didn't that was too easy. And for so many reasons. So like I wanted to make this one difficult, and this is. So
Yeah.
I chose this I chose this specifically, and I wanted to make it hard. And there again, your recency bias kind of plays a lot into this too, right?
Yep.
Like I've obviously smoked more Vengeances than I have 20th anniversary Vientes. It's
Totally.
been around a lot longer. Um, I was I'm just a huge fan of that. I'm a huge fan of both blends. They're very similar,
Yeah.
which is also very difficult too when you think about it, which is the reason why the 20th anniversary of Viente performed so well on my list. Is because they're both very similar. And ultimately they both ended up being number one on my list. Um, for me, I've is even though the history buff in me, right? I love history and everything, and I love celebrating history as much as it pains me to say um, this. I would have to say that the Vengeance still probably wins out. Um,
Oh, wow.
the Viente, the 20th anniversary of Viente is a magnificent cigar. But I would kill that off because I just think the Vengeance is that strong of a brand for Christoph. And um, to talk about Christoph also in recent years, like I think they have put on a show when it comes to recent releases. I think they
Mm.
have put together some amazing cigars to the market in the last 3 and 4 years. Vente is included in that, of course. But if we kill that off, we still have a lot of amazing cigars that have come out of that factory. I don't
Yep.
think they necessarily miss a beat. When you take out the Vengeance, you really, ironically, you really mess with the company's history quite a bit, and you really mess with that portfolio quite a bit. And I just think it's just it to me, it's clear that it's got. I would keep the Vengeance. I'd kill off the 20th anniversary Viente.
Well, for me, like you, I was an early Christoph fan. The Vengeance used to be, and I still have. In fact, I just saw them like a week ago when I was rummaging through my stand-up humidor. I think I still have 12 or 14 Vengeance from quite a few years ago, because that was one of those cigars where I call it the sort of auto ship, where that was just when I'm running low, I get another box of Vengeance. And I remember smoking them, and people were like, "What are you smoking?" And I'm like, "Christoph." And like, I haven't heard of that brand. I'm like, "Here you go. You got to try it." Um, so I mean, especially if you talk about retroactively, without the Vengeance, that's kind of one of those foundational cigars for me where when I started to get into this sort of boutique-ish, higher end, more sophisticated cigars, the Vengeance is one of those was in my portfolio, and I can't imagine how that would have shaped my tastes if I wouldn't have had the Vengeance. But you are right. I mean, the Venti 20 is. I mean, it's building on what the Vengeance already kind of pioneered. So yeah, I can get on board with that. I can get on board with keeping the Vengeance and getting rid of the Venti.
Awesome,
Yep.
nice, nice. All right. So if we want to do a quick review, wanted to just go through the 10 matchups that we've done so far. In the first matchup, we had Monte Cristo number two, Yes Vitola versus Cohiba Bahike. I'd keep the Monte Cristo. John would keep the Bahike.
Yep.
The Oliva Serie V Maduro versus the Aro Fuente short story. Yes, also Vitola. Cameroon, not sun-grown. Sorry. Um, both of us would keep the Fuente. Um, for the number third matchup, we had Dunbar Tobacco and Trust Me Carita Blue versus the Foundation Tabernacle. I would kill off the Tabernacle. John would kill off the Me Carita Blue. This was the surprise of the night for me. the ultimate cigar debate, the carnage within its own brand. Drew Estate Liga Privada number 9 versus Drew Estate Liga Privada T52. Both of us killed off the number 9
Yeah.
and are going to be promptly receiving some hate mail from this
Yeah,
once this goes live.
we could be persona non grata in some
Yeah,
lounges across the United States
yeah.
after this one, but yeah, we'll
We,
see.
we may never be heard from again. It's okay. We will survive. We're survivors. Number 5 was My Father Le Bijou, 1922 versus Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Uh, we both we both killed off the eight,
Begrudgingly.
yeah, begrudgingly the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua.
Yeah.
Different reasons, but we both,
Different reasons.
yeah. Um, the I convinced John on this one. This he probably had something else at the bank, but it stands to reason that I've convinced him to do otherwise. On the number 6 matchup, we had the JRE Aladino 85th Anniversary Reserva. The number 1 cigar of the year for developing palates last year versus the Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust Sobremesa Solita Red. I killed the Aladino off, and John followed suit. Um, Number 7, we had the Aroma Craft Cro-Magnon PA versus the Patina Anniversary. I killed off the Cro-Magnon PA, and you killed off the Patina, correct?
No, I also killed off the
Oh,
Chromag PA.
yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you convinced me on that one. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
yeah, and that was just a portfolio size thing. Yeah, there's so many other offerings that are available that, yeah, as
yeah.
painful as it would be, you'll be all right.
We both agreed on the Padron argument, 1926 versus 1964. We kill off the
Yeah,
26. Even though we both agree that we like the 26 better. So went against our own interest there. That's
yeah,
it's the definition of insanity.
right.
Number 9, Diamond Crown OG versus Diamond Crown Julius Caesar. You kept the OG, I kept the Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
And for the 10th matchup, I kept the Vengeance. You kept the Vengeance from Christoph, and we both killed off
Yeah.
the Christoph 20th Anniversary Viente, which were my
I'll be hearing
two.
from Jared on that one.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, John, we are coming up on 2 hours into the show, and we still have some fun segments to conclude the evening, as well as we have 10 additional matchups. So I
Love it.
wanted to pose the question to my guest. I know you have got a staycation coming up, but I wanted to get your thoughts on their series thus far, and I wanted to pose it to you. I wanted to see how far this got. I figured we would have some nice deliberation with this top 10, and I figured that that we could certainly go the distance with this. But I actually wanted to pause here, and I wanted to put it up to you. I am game either way, and I know our audience is either way. And but I wanted to pose it to you. How do you feel about this topic so far as a series? Uh, and how do you feel about pausing it here and continuing at a later date with the remaining top 10 or remaining 10 duels that I put together?
The topic is great. I love anything that makes you have to work at it, as uncomfortable as that might be. Like you know, to coin a nerdy tobacco thing, tobacco has to work in order to be good. And that was one of the big shocks to me when I started learning about tobacco, is that you can't make it easy for the tobacco. The tobacco has to struggle and work to be good. If you make it easy, then the tobacco doesn't grow strong and the tobacco doesn't come out with the best flavors. So it's a fun segment, and it's fun to have to choose one, even though you want to choose both. And the conversation is fun. In terms of continuing, I am on a staycation, so I am completely okay with going forward with the 10. So I'm going to leave it up to our host as to whether he wants to put in another hour and a half or whatever that time frame might be. It is in your hands, Bear. What do you want to do?
Um, I am going to say let's split the difference and let's go to 15 matchups. This allows me
Okay.
more time to put together some more matchups and invite you back for another series. And then I think that after that, maybe we could talk about expanding it and then having other people come in and weigh in as well too. So
That sounds good.
let's so we'll do 5 more matchups and we'll conclude our evening with the rest of our fun segments. So let's go ahead and kick things off with our 11th matchup of the night. John, you are going to have the honors on this one.
Nice.
And it is one of a storied career that has given us some of the best boutique cigars that have ever come to market. In fact, the maker of these cigars is known as the godfather of the boutique cigar movement.
Ooh.
And there have been some changes at the company recently, including a name change. But these two cigars specifically really uh, put him on the map in terms of the notoriety that people feel like he long since deserved. Of course, I'm talking about Ernesto Perez Carrillo, and I am talking about the cigar death match of the EP Carrillo Encore versus the EP Carrillo Pledge. Both #1 cigar winners for Cigar Aficionado. Both top 10 finishers in my list. The Encore was actually the #1 cigar of the year as well. Um, but wanted to go ahead and pose this. Now, you have some things to say, I know, about some of the stuff that's come out of Casa Carrillo, the name change, recently. And so I thought this would be an interesting conversation piece for a number of different angles. But I thought this was a difficult choice nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean the name change is interesting because Ernesto, uh, as you say, the Godfather, and I think very well respected in the industry, and so it was kind of a bit of a shock to me that they rebranded in a way that sort of kept the family name but took Ernesto's given name out of the equation. And I don't think we've ever really seen that, right? Like it'd be kind of like Padron. I mean, it's not the same, but it'd be as if Padron changed from Padron to something else. It would be a very huge shift in the branding and the portfolio. And so it's one of those things where, like, on paper, I totally understand why you made that decision. You want to change the marketing up, you want to kind of move the company in a new direction with his daughters. Um, but as someone who's been smoking now for a while, I obviously have an attachment to the brand and what it was. And so I think it's very tough for me to kind of say goodbye to the Ernesto portion of that branding. Um, Even though, it completely makes sense. That's where a little bit of that traditionalist in me comes in, where I'm like, I really don't want to say goodbye to that. In terms of brands, the pledge is it's got a little bit of recency bias, as you say. Like it's a newer offering from EPC, which is not EPC anymore. It's Casa Carrillo. So yeah, I'm still doing it EPC.
Yeah.
Um,
These are keeping the name, though. These are not Casa Carrillo Pledge and Casa
yeah,
Carrillo
yeah,
Encore. These are
yeah,
still keeping the name. So,
yeah, yeah. Um, as a portfolio, I mean, it's interesting. I wonder, from a retailer perspective, which has been stronger. I feel like the pledge was more popular than the Encore, despite the fact the Encore has more. I think it's got more offerings and it's been around for longer. Um, I suspect that the Pledge was one of those cigars that captured a lot of the market that Ernesto didn't have before. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. You take away the Pledge, that does damage the brand, because that's kind of where the brand has been shifted, right? The Pledge is kind of the new offering. It's, to coin a phrase from Oliva, it's taken away the Melanio in a way. You know what I mean? Like the Melanio is kind of the replacement for the Oliva Maduro. The Pledge is kind of taking over from where the Encore was, I think, in my head. Um, so against my better interest, and I'm not ending up where I thought I would be. But I think you got to keep the Pledge and say goodbye to the Encore. Weirdly enough.
okay. Um, yeah, I think that I was I'm still mulling over how I feel about the name change. But I think it's also appropriate too, because if you think about all of the great cigar makers that have that are still with us and then have since passed on. If there was one person to kind of step back and take their name, while his last name is still there, but take their name out of the spotlight, I think hands down, I think everyone chooses Ernesto. I
Yeah.
think they say like, oh, that's the guy that would do it. So
Yeah.
I think that that's pretty apropos to his personality and to how he's always kind of treated the spotlight a little bit. I so it's interesting. The Encore is a very polarizing cigar. While it was met with much acclaim, particularly on the cigar aficionado crowd. There were a lot of people that I know that didn't like it, like flat out didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like not even saying like, oh, it's not my favorite or it's less good than some of these other choosings. They just flat out didn't like it. I thought it was incredible. I still smoke a ton of them. It was my number one cigar of the year. Pledge was not my number one cigar of the year that it appeared
Yeah.
on my list. Um, it was a number one cigar on Cigar Aficionado as well. In fact, it was the highest rated number one cigar that they've ever had.
Yeah.
Um, but Cigar Aficionado's not here. It's you and I, John.
Maybe in
And
the future.
so I think that as surprisingly as this is going to say, I think that if you get rid of the pledge, I think it really hurts that overall brand. And now the argument could be made that the La Historia and the pledge are very close, in terms of like where they and kind of Encore kind of fills this much needed gap. And then you have the Encore Black and things like that. And so it's kind of like, you know, Encore is this kind of natural kind of it's almost the obvious choice. But for me, I think, man, I I it really pains me to say this. It really does, but I think I'd kill off the Encore. I think I would do
Yeah.
it in favor of
And
the
I'm
pledge.
with you. I like if you held up all the encores versus all the pledges, I'm gonna pick the encores in terms of flavor profile over the pledges. I prefer the encore to the pledge, but you kind of have to look at it from the whole brand perspective. What does more damage to the brand? What does more damage to sales? Getting rid of the encore or getting rid of the pledge?
Yeah. So yeah. So I'm gonna kill off the Encore and I'm gonna keep the pledge. You're keeping the Encore, you're getting rid of the pledge.
Mm-mm.
Um,
I'm also keeping the pledge and getting rid of the encore
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, cool.
for the same
All right.
reason. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Despite where I thought I would land, I thought I would keep the encore and pledge, but as I thought about it, I'm like, no, you'd have to get rid of the encore and keep the pledge.
All right. So next matchup, here we go. We talked a little bit about this category when we were talking about Patron, and that's kind of that super premium or ultra premium, however you decide to land on it. And so these are two cigars that I think, in particular, represent the super premium or ultra premium space incredibly well, and for different reasons. And I think
Okay.
there's a lot of history with one and more historical significance in another. Um, this is going to be one for this is going to be one for the discussion topic. So we have from Selected Tobacco, the Atabey, and from Davidoff, we have the Royal Release.
Mm, wow.
Which one dies?
So that is an interesting matchup. They both play in the same space. I think that you run into not at the same level, but I think you run into the same problem with the Cro-Mag versus the Patina, where Davidoff has an enormous number of cigars that play in this, maybe not in the Royal Robusto level, right? But you still have Oro Blanco, you have trying to think what else would be in that space.
Well, it did the 50th anniversary, but that was a
50th
one and done.
anniversary, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the newer limiteds are actually starting to land in that space as well. So I think, you know, Davidoff as a brand is probably going to survive without that in their portfolio. I think the Atabey is kind of the crown jewel in selected tobaccos. And I
Yeah,
think, you've got the Byron, which is phenomenal. And at times, I struggle between Byron and Atabey. Because there's some Byrons where I'm like, man, this is like, I feel like this particular cigar is better than this particular Atabey.
right. Yeah.
But if you took away Atabey, I mean, truly, like I feel like that is the crown jewel of selected tobaccos, and I think that would cripple their premium, super premium category. Um, so it's kind of ends up being one of these things of like, the Davidoff is a legendary release, but Davidoff's going to be just fine. They probably wouldn't even miss a beat dropping that versus the Atabey. So I think in this case, I would say you got to keep the Atabey and get rid of the Davidoff. Because I just don't think selected tobaccos would be the same without it.
I thought this one would be a lot harder for me. And
Mm,
then I started really kind of going down a list and it seemed just more and more obvious. I think you pointed out the most obvious. I think Byron by itself, and like you said, a lot of times I like Byron's over Atabe's. You have the Alfonso, which is becoming more and more popular by the day. The Nelson,
yeah,
which is coming up hot and heavy. And, I know that Nelson Alfonso isn't done. So there's
no,
probably going to be something. Bandolero and as well too,
hmm
That one kind of gets lost in the shuffle, I think, sometimes when you talk about the selected tobacco products and stuff. But that being said, um, and Dave Garofalo says it's the best cigar he's ever smoked, the Atabey. And I really don't need that guy coming after me either. But I think it just like when you go down and check the boxes and everything, it just makes sense to kill off the Davidoff Royal Robusto in this matchup. Um, like you said, Davidoff's not hurting if it's gone. It doesn't miss
no,
anything. And I think, if this was Oro Blanco, I think that would be even harder. It's harder, of a conversation. I think it would almost be harder, even though that one's even more limited because of its price point and stuff.
yeah.
But I still, but I think over the Royal release, I think Atabey just all day. I'd pick it like on every single barometer, every single comparison point. I would just pick it, you know.
Jay's given you a follow-up death match, which I think will be great for a future conversation. Is now that Atabey moves on to the next round, Atabey versus the Davidoff Anniversario, and that would be a much harder and longer conversation, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I completely agree. I think they're
Yeah,
all conversations. I think that's what's really interesting about this very small portfolio of
yeah,
selected tobacco versus this very stored portfolio of Davidoff. They play in the same space, yet
hmm
it's this kind of versus mode. They're kind of almost unintentionally becoming rivals in a lot of sense.
yeah. I would say, yep,
And I think it's I think we're going to see continue to see some really great releases coming from Selected Tobacco. And just like we'll
yep,
continue to see some good stuff coming out of Davidoff as well. So,
yep.
all
I agree.
right.
Nice, nice lineup.
All right. So this one's going to play near and dear to John's heart and mine. This was mentioned earlier, the top of the show, actually. I think we both have an affinity for this man's blends, particularly in this particular company, because he's got three, technically speaking. And that's of course James Brown with Blackwork Studio.
Here we go.
Um, and I think that it's a very interesting conversation because one doesn't necessarily exist without the other. But I think they're also in a much more subdued sense. But they also haven't been around as long. But I feel like I am hearing more and more of these conversations similar to the number nine versus T52 conversation. And that, of course, is the Blackwork Studio Killer B versus the Blackwork Studio Killer B Green Hornet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, talk about Sophie's choice. Yeah, I mean they're both excellent, and I have it, and this is unlike the 9 and the T52. For me, this almost splits right down the middle of I've got killer bees and I've got variations of killer bees and I've got hornets and um and it kind of comes down to what I'm feeling at the time. I'm trying to think of all the different new offerings within each because there's been offshoots, right? Like
Yeah, there's Killer Bee Connecticut, there's the Shaolin, there's the um Swarm, which was completely different. That's not even in the same. That's actually its own. I
it's
would
its
say
own
its own
thing,
its own
but
thing.
it wouldn't exist without the original killer bee.
Yeah, much like the Hornet as well.
No,
So
man, that's a tough one. Man, oh man. I think I think if you put both portfolios in front of me, I think I have to keep the killer bee, which is painful. I mean, it's painful to pick between the two. I think that part of that is I know that Killer Bee was a hard project for James, because it's always harder to blend in Connecticut, especially when you blend in the fuller spectrum. Backing that off is always way more complicated than if you start in the lighter spectrum and go into the fuller body spectrum. Again, some of the stuff we've talked about already, it's very easy to hide, and not that he does. I'm just saying, like when you blend a fuller bodied cigar, you can hide some of the gaps, but you can't really do that in a Connecticut.
no.
Connecticut is very hard, and most blenders will say Connecticut's the hardest cigar they blend. Um, gosh, man, yeah. So you want to talk about hard? This is hard. But I think in my heart of hearts, I think I would have to keep the Killer Bee Connecticut.
Yeah.
I'm I'm
Uh,
I'm I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this.
so I will say that the Killer Bee actually has appeared on my top 10 list while the Hornet is not. That being said, if you put them side by side, I'm going to go ahead and say this: I like the Hornet better,
No
and
question.
I smoke more Hornets than I do Killer Bees. Um,
Okay.
so you would think, okay, well, Bear's probably leaning towards Hornet, but I'm not. I think for all the reasons that you said, the Black Label, the Oveja Negra world in general. So you have Blackwork Studio, you've got Black Label Trading Company, and then you've got Emilio. There's not a lot. There's a lot of variance when you talk about on the darker, beefier, more fuller bodied the spectrum. There's a lot of variance within that world. And to me, I don't think anyone does it better when you're talking about playing in that strength field, right? To your point, it's really easy to like hide mistakes, and so people can beef up and make beefier cigars, and there's not really much to it. They're just they're
Yeah.
strength for the sake of strength, they're power for the strength of power, and they're good cigars. They're not like I'm not begrudging anyone who does that, but and it's going to be interesting when it comes up in another matchup here in a minute. But that 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 specific point. That being said, um, I think that James put on a master class when he came out with the Killer Bee,
Yeah.
specifically because like that, and then on the Blackworks Studio side, the porcelain
Oh,
also also excellent.
which
Which also
doesn't taste like a Killer Bee. It's like, he's come out with something that's in that space, and yet those two cigars don't
yeah
taste alike.
yeah they're completely different. but and then to say both, and to just a side note on both of these, I mean the artistry and the
Mm.
craftsmanship in making both of these cigars, what they are. That being said, again, I like the Hornet better. Um, but I have to kind of put my personal choice aside and just be show respect to show respect to the craftsman here. And I would kill off the Hornet in favor of the Killer Bee, specifically for some of the reasons you outlined and that I've stated. It's just I think it would be a disservice to the Blackwork Studio portfolio to say that, hey, we can have Hornets, but we can't have Killer Bees anymore. Versus the versus
I
the
feel
Killer
like
Bee.
there'd be more of there's more of a vacuum getting rid of the killer bee than there's the hornet.
Yeah,
I don't want to get rid of either, but yeah, I feel like there's more of a vacuum if you get rid of the killer bee than the hornet.
yeah.
But I'm of the same like I said I struggle in my humidor. There's days where I'm like I just feel like the Connecticut and there's I don't think it's 50-50. It's I'm probably more of a 60-40, 65-35 on the Hornet over the Connecticut, but
I do want to ask this question because this probably was the one of the most fun segments I've ever done with Coop, and it was the most we've ever been on opposite sides of a discussion point. But but before I go into any more detail, I want to pose the question to you. If you could own, you still retain James, you still retain the factory, you still retain the tobaccos and everything like that, right? But
yeah.
if you could own any of the three companies within the company, Black
Yeah, yeah.
Label Trading Company, Blackwork Studio, or Emilio, rank them and your choice on how you would pick them.
So you've got the business side, right? And you can't have Blackwork Studio without Black Label Trading Company as a business, right? Black Label Trading Company is what allows Blackwork Studio to exist. And so it kind of becomes this thing of core line versus limited. And I know Coop has very strong opinions on limiteds. Emilio, I think, is probably by the nature of how strong the regular releases are in the Black Label Trading Company portfolio and the Blackwork Studio portfolio, Emilio gets lost a little there. And I think it's a
Yeah.
little unfair, but as a nerd, as a cigar smoker, I'm always finding myself gravitating towards Black Label or Blackwork Studio as number one because it's the mad scientist cooking away, coming out with innovative stuff constantly. And Jay knows because he's constantly now contacting me. He's like, "Hey, Blackwork Studio just came out with this new project." And I'm like, "Dude, don't tell me that. I know, I want to own them all." And so for me, as a nerd, Blackwork Studio is always my go-to. Black Label Trading Company is number two, and Amelia is number three. Um, but from a business perspective, like I said, you can't have Blackwork Studio without Black Label Trading Company. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about for me, when I go to buy, when I'm
Yeah.
looking at the portfolio, Blackwork Studio is always hands down. I mean, unfortunately, James has kind of created a bit of a monster because some of those releases, some of those limiteds are just they just hit with such a ferocity in the industry that it almost creates a problem where people, and not just people but the retailers, they want the Blackwork Studio
Hmm.
because it's sexy, because it's new, because it's exciting, and so it eats up the Black Label Trading Company portfolio a little bit. What are your thoughts on where do
Oh,
you
I
land on that?
landed the same. No, John, you're right. Like there is a right and a wrong answer to this. This was the very like the most animated conversation that I ever had with Coop. And you answered it correctly. It's Blackwork Studio, Black Label Trading Company, and Emilio. In that order, full
Yeah.
stop. That is the answer to the question. Coop, in his in all his wisdom, and I'm like, I stopped listening when he said Emilio first, and I lost my shit. Like I mean, it was probably the one of the more entertaining conversations we have ever had. It was probably the most entertaining our podcast has ever been because I absolutely could not stay in my chair. It was so goddamn bad, John. Like, it was just, I was like, no, you're wrong. Like, this is, we try to respect each other's opinions quite a bit. And I feel like there's sometimes when we land on different sides of the argument, um, you know, and we're kind of respectful for each other. And like, that was one that we just weren't. Like, it just went so bad. And,
I
in a very real way. It was all in fun, of course, and we had a good time with it, but God, I couldn't believe it. I just was floored.
I would
Was
love to
floored.
see a coop death match would be the strongest two offerings from Black Label Trading Company versus the strongest two offerings from Blackwork Studio versus the strongest two offerings from Emilio.
Yeah, and have that
Would be
conversation.
really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be a bit of a three-way competition, which is not in keeping with what we've done tonight. But I don't see how the strongest two offerings from Blackwork Studio don't blow the doors off of Emilio.
Yeah. But God, by God, it was one of the best segments I've ever been a part of in all the podcasts we've done because it was just sheer, it was just unbelievable entertainment.
Yeah.
So, all right. Um, two more matchups for the night. Okay. And they're both um what one's interesting. And they kind of got randomly jumbled together and one was very intentional. So, John, I'll let you decide. Do you want to do the intentional one or do you want to do the random one first?
Let's do the random one first.
Okay. They kind of make sense when you kind of think them together as far as if you look at them from like how they're like what they meant to the industry and how the impact that they had on the industry, and then kind of how they represent the two different brands. So completely two different companies. All right. So we have Crowned Heads on one end and we have Warped on the other. Those are the two
Mm.
companies that they're talking about. The cigars that we're talking about are the Mil Diaz and the La Colmena Black Honey.
Well, this is an interesting matchup because you could have gone with quite a number of offerings from either company in this space. And I think that this goes back to a bit of the Davidoff argument where I think that Mil Diaz has been such a strong year over year offering from Crown Heads that pulling away the Mil Diaz from Crown Heads would be so impactful to Crown Heads. The La Colmena Black Honey, which was phenomenal. Um, but you've got other releases in that space with the 6102s and the Don Ronaldo and Corto. And I mean, there's so many other pivots
Yeah.
that, as painful as it would be, I think you could turf the La Colmena, but man, taking away the Mil Diaz from Crown Heads, especially for a multi-year running, I have to keep the Mil Diaz and get rid of the La Colmena. Where do you land with that?
I agree with you. Devil's advocate, real quick.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
put something out there. Mil Diaz, in a lot of ways, was a real big and is like it was a real big disruptor in the industry. I think it was something
big time.
completely different that no other company can kind of seen before, and certainly not from Crowned Heads, but I would argue from a lot of other companies. Like it was a very big disruptor in the industry, and took the industry by storm, and it's still incredibly popular and an incredible mover and shaker for Crowned Heads. Devil's advocate, did it because I'm sticking with the title of disruptor on this.
Yeah.
Did it disrupt Crown Heads to the point where it kind of shook that portfolio up in a way of like, well, does this really belong? Like, is this supposed to be here? You know, kind of thing. Did it disrupt its, was it kind of like the uh the Frankenstein, so to speak, the monster of its
Yeah,
own
yeah.
creation kind of thing within the Crown Heads portfolio. Devil's advocate. I agree with you. I'm absolutely kicking. Look, the black honey's out of the conversation now. Like it's
Yeah,
dead.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
dead. It's dead. Like I just like for entertainment and discussion. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mil Diaz was an important shift in what they were doing. I mean, you could say in a lot of ways it was it made sense where the company had been going for years in terms of, yearly releases and trying to add something not necessarily unique, but something that evolved the company into a space that they weren't already playing in.
Hmm.
And so it makes sense, even though, like you say, it is disruptive. It is it is kind of a I mean, it's not a Blackworks Studio type of disruption within their portfolio, but I think it's an important key pillar within their brand because it doesn't it isn't like any of their other offerings, right? It's a
Right.
it's a different style, it's a different type of release. The way they approach it is different. Um, and so I think overall, for sure, their brand wouldn't be as strong without the Mil DS. And
Yeah.
again, that's where I think the La Colmena, while being a very good cigar, I don't think that was as important to the sort of landscape of Warped as a brand as a whole as Mil Diaz was to Crowned Heads for sure.
Yeah. I think this is probably the most lopsided of the two, like the death matches tonight.
Yeah,
In a lot of ways. I think the reason they come together is they were kind of both disruptive in a sense, but I think Mil Diaz dwarfs what Black Honey did. I
I would
think if
agree.
you want to have the conversation of it's an unfair conversation, but if you want to have a conversation about Mil Diaz versus Warped as a whole, that's a little bit more of an on par conversation.
Mm,
But then that just I think that even kind of lends more credence to the argument of the power of Mil Diaz and what is meant to the boutique space and everything. What I so it's interesting. And I'm not going to get too far down the religious rabbit hole, but we at my church every summer we do we they do a series of sermons on a topic of some kind. And the topic for this summer has been disruption
mm.
and how, the taking away the negative connotation of disruption and everything. And I think far be it from, even though it was kind of pivotal in one of the other disruptions in the Crown Heads history, which was the breakup of the Ace Prime, Luciano Crown Heads breakup,
Partnership, yeah.
yeah, partnership, and then of course the other pivotal moment in the history was also the merging of, Osgood coming back into the industry and everything. And then Crowned Heads, of course,
Yep,
just forming in general. I think the Four Kicks story is part of that as well too.
yep.
Like Mil Diaz, I think for its history, Crowned Heads' history, I think Mil Diaz by itself independently is the single most significant historical point in the entire company's history because what it did to the industry. I think it was so disruptive in a way, introducing something that was completely different, unique. I know that word gets tossed around way too much, but it really was. Um, and it's like you could put Mil Diaz versus a ton of cigars that we've mentioned tonight, even cigars that are considered even far more iconic. And Mil Diaz probably comes out on top more times than you would care to admit. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, especially when you take it within the landscape of the brand itself, right? Like, it was a multi-year evolution of where they were going. It's obviously stood the test of time, which I think is something to be said about a brand. It hasn't gone away. It is a pillar of their offerings now, and will continue to be. Um, there's a conversation about the branding, about the logo, and you can get Aaron Loomis to weigh in on that. He has strong feelings about that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's more important to the industry and it's more important to the brand than La Colmena Black Honey was to Warped for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
awesome. So we got the final matchup of the night. And you would think that, we've had a couple of like intercompany battles tonight that would probably be a little bit more, or certainly more intense. But you would think that this one is actually this might be one of the harder, if not the hardest matchup of the night, because one certainly wouldn't have existed without the other, and both broke barriers in much different ways. So tonight's final death match is La Flor Dominicana. We
Oh,
have the double Lajero versus Lajero.
interesting. Interesting. Hmm. Those are very niche spaces already because LFD, um, LFD on its own is a standout in Dominican companies in
Hmm.
terms of, how they blend. The strength level to which they blend is very, very different from really the entire market in Dominican cigars. In fact, so much so that you'd almost say their approach to blending is almost Nicaraguan in a
Yeah,
sense. Like,
I was about to say,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? And that's always caught me off guard with their brand is that, they're very traditional, they're very Dominican at their core, and yet the cigars they put out are so un-Dominican in so many ways when I
Yeah.
think about, the flavor profile and the strength profile. Double Lajero versus Lajero. The Double Lajero is an icon within their brand. Um, but I don't know from a sales perspective, you know, does an LFD smoker gravitate more towards the Double Lajero than the Lajero? And I don't know. I know that up here when we were selling LFD, when I was in the industry, LFD smokers would absolutely gravitate towards Double Lajero over Lajero. I gravitate towards Double Lajero over Lajero.
Same and same. My experience
Uh,
and my opinion. Yeah.
yeah. So, I think I would keep the double Lajero and get rid of the Lajero because I think the double Lajero is a more iconic offering in the LFD space, and I think you could pivot the Lajero smoker away to something else or up to the double Lajero.
Yeah.
I think.
So there's an interesting conversation here because like you can't have one without the other necessarily.
Right.
And what's really interesting, which is actually even more interesting still, is that Ligero tobacco
Right.
wasn't used before La Flor Dominicana came to market. It was disposed of. It was
Yeah.
trashed. It
Too
was
strong.
scrapped. Yeah, it was scrap. It was too strong. Couldn't do it, right? And I think if the cigar industry has proven anything, as much as they are traditional and steadfast in tradition and honoring like their histories and stuff like that, just tell someone they can't do something and they figure a way to do it.
Right.
Carlito did it with, Opus, Lito did it with Ligero, and you could list off a lot of others that kind of followed in those footsteps. But um, I think I agree with you, John, because I think that as historic as Ligero was, and it was my first La Flor Dominicana, put me on my ass, which is comical because I could smoke that cigar for breakfast now and be happy.
Right.
Um, but as like as important and quintessential as that cigar was to history, the double Ligero represents an even more important point in history, which is saying, hey, listen, the Ligero is something you don't have to be afraid of. In fact, we're going to put twice as much in, and we're we're going to double down, literally double down on
Hmm.
this, and we're going to show you that you can have a balanced cigar, and a full flavored Dominican cigar all in one kit caboodle and knock it out of the park. And they certainly did. And it stayed the test of time over 30 years of the company's history. Double Hero isn't that old, but it's it's well over 2 decades old at this point. And it's stayed the test of time, and it really has been um always been the more popular in my personal consumption of their
I think
products.
so. Yeah. Well, yeah, for me personally, definitely. Yeah. no
And from
question.
and also from everything I witnessed at the retail level, we had probably 2.5 times the offerings of double Hero to Hero products when I
Oh,
was
there
in
you go.
retail. Um, but it'd be interesting to see the numbers now for sure, especially
Yeah.
company wide. I'd like to understand that a little bit more. Um,
And I mean, it does make you wonder back when the Lejero hit the market. If you'd taken away the Lejero and only offered the double Lejero, how complicated and how challenging it would have been to move people all the way into that space without the Lejero being in that place first. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
Without that foundation to build off of, how much further, how much longer would it have taken to get people into that? And I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't dial back time and make that change, but it would be interesting. I think, it definitely would have taken a longer time, but I think the double Hero still would have been very, very popular once people kind of moved into that space.
Nice. All right. Well, that was our 15 matchups, cigar death matchups. We killed off some icons tonight, John.
We sure did.
Um,
Can't wait for the emails.
yeah. I still think that we probably hit our apex was probably the Liga Privada 9 battle versus
Yep.
Liga Privada T52. The
Yep.
age-old battle, the the everlasting debate that still exists in cigar shops today. We put it to rest. We killed off the 9, guys. Sorry, it's dead. The
It's
T52 reigns
toast.
supreme.
No more
T52.
broadleaf. Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
exactly. Sorry. We're reallocating the broadleaf, as John put it. So, so now Skip can make Cro-Magnets. So we're fine.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Tobacco's available again.
Yeah, you're
You're
welcome.
welcome.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome.
So, um, that was a lot of fun, John. I'm yeah, I'm convinced this is going to be a great series, and I can't wait to have you back to have some more of these conversations.
Awesome.
Plenty of cigars, guys. Plenty of debates out there. This is just scratching the surface, man. We did 15 matchups tonight, 30 total cigars. 15 cigars reign supreme. John and I disagreed on a few. We agreed on a couple, including that one, which was shocking, I'm sure, to a
Yeah.
lot, including ourselves. Why I thought would have been more of the harder conversation of the night, the 1926 versus the 1964. Both of us killing off the 1926. Even though we both agree that we probably would reach for the 26 if given the choice.
Yeah.
Before we start up, what was your favorite matchup? What stands out to you?
Yeah, I think definitely the Drew Estate was the more interesting one. Obviously, the personal bias plays a huge part of that. I think if you approach that from a retailer point of view, if you had a retailer on, the retailer would be very, very challenged to pick between those two because you talk about you'd really be cutting off your arm, and certainly within the super premium, making a hard choice between the Atabey and the Davidoff. That would also probably be a very, very tough pick, I think, for a retailer. Um, Jay did weigh in on the Encore and the Pledge, and it was interesting because he had some personal bias selection there as well between the Encore and the Pledge of he liked one over the other, and so I wonder again from a retailer's point of view if you got to cut out one from your shelf space, you got to make that hard financial decision. Which one are you going to pick? Which one was the most interesting for you?
I think I was most surprised by the Drew Estate,
Hmm.
for sure. I think the most surprising to me was that I turned you around by going first. I turned you around on the JRE Aladino 85th
Yeah,
versus the Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust Sober Mesa Solita Red. So uh,
which is a hard place because obviously I gave the 85th the number one. So as much as I love Dunbarton. But if you put a Solita Red in front of me in the 85th JRE, I'm probably going with the JRE 85th. But yeah, your argument about the rest of the brand filling that gap is that was a well positioned argument. You did very well on that one.
I'm curious. I should have done a little bit better research on this when I pulled those two. Which one did you score better? Do you remember?
Hmm. Personally, I'm pretty sure the 85th I'll have to look at my spreadsheet. I think they were probably separated by, and I'll have to look at the spreadsheet, but I bet they were separated by a half a point. So like I want to say the 85th would have scored like a 717, and the Salida Red was a 68 something, 685 would be my guess.
Here, I
But
just
we do have the spreadsheet,
yeah, I
so
pulled
I
up.
can.
So I got the 85th. You were a 6.72. Great score from you,
Okay,
which that's an auto return to
I
you
thought it'd be higher than
on
that.
the 85th anniversary. And then here I'm pulling up the um I'm pulling up the Salida Red.
I might have being a liar on this one. We'll see.
So
I thought
6.72 on the and then no, you're right. You're right, John. You were higher on the JRE. So
whew,
6.72 versus the Salida Red at 6.52. Both auto returns for you.
yeah,
Everything, if I remember from our last conversation, you pretty much anything over 6.25 is kind of an auto back. Like, hey, I'll smoke that
yeah.
again. I'll reach for that again. I'll buy that again.
Yeah, yeah. I think anytime you reach that, to me, to use the Coop method, which I love, which is tying that score to a buying decision, which I think is always an interesting conversation because it's one thing to rate a cigar high, but the conversation is always, okay, we've rated that cigar high. How many are you buying? Right? Are you going out and seeking that out? And so for me, anything that reaches the 6.5 threshold is when you start to get into that goes on to my purchasing list, and it goes on to my list of when I have buddies who routinely ask me like, okay, what have you smoked lately, or what are you scoring high this year that you think I should go out and buy? And that's to me the cutoff is once it hit that 6.5, that's where you start to go, okay, now you start to make hard decisions. Do I recommend he goes buys the 85th, or I recommend to buy the Salida Red? Well, now it becomes a price conversation, but you know 6.5 is really that's when my credit card comes out.
Just curious, using just to have that conversation. I'm just thinking about Dumbarton in specifically. Did you ever smoke the unicorn?
No, and I regret that because I was at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Festival the first year that Steve was there. Steve was there with he was there many years before that, but the first year he was there with the unicorns, and I had an opportunity to buy one. And I must have hummed and hawed all day long about whether I was going to pick them up. And I think it was about two-thirds of the way through the day, and I was still trying to make up my mind, and it was too late. They were all sold through. I think he sold through most of the way, part of the way through the first day. All of them were gone. But that's probably one of my biggest regrets is not buying the unicorn. I mean, obviously it's not an inexpensive cigar,
No.
but I think it's one of those ones where the next time I see a unicorn kind of come up, I'm probably going to pick one up if I'm at retail because I want to try it. It's just one of those cigars where, price aside, it's a market release that I don't want to have missed out on smoking, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Coop says it's the best thing that Steve's ever made.
Wow.
And I did do some research on this. I thought, because I had this question in the till for you specifically. I didn't know if you had smoked it. I know you guys didn't review it.
Yeah.
But you have
Little pricey.
yeah, you have reviewed a couple of Moisture Sakas. And
Hmm.
while you certainly didn't dislike either, they kind of scored lower for you. The Krakatoa
Yeah.
specifically was under 6.
Yeah.
For you, it was like 5.95, I believe, and then 6.1 for the Bewitched, which was one of my favorite
Yeah.
Moistras. I still love the Exclusiva is probably my favorite Moistra. So that was I was wondering where you fell on the unicorn if you had smoked it, and if you haven't, like where it would fall necessarily. But
Yeah, I wish the Paladin I think was the one that came out on top for me on those series. If I remember right, I think that was one of my higher scoring. But yeah, like I said, the Paladin, the Unicorn was that was one of those cigar regrets. And had I go back and make a different decision, I would have hummed and hawed and grabbed my pearls a little bit less and just gone up and got it. Um, yeah.
All right. Well, let's conclude tonight's evening with some of our fun segments. We always have fun with these. Some of these are obviously the next segment is pretty much on par with what we've been doing tonight. It's the this or that segment brought to you by Artista Cigars, which is truly the last hidden gem of the Dominican Republic. With nearly 70 years of rolling cigars experience, the family behind Artista believes in honoring their long-held traditions of handmade artistry. Artista's blends include to factory exclusive tobaccos and front marks for every budget. In fact, Artista has one of the most varied portfolios on the market today. There's something for everyone at Artista. Now, if you're like me and never can really decide what to smoke, Artista is actually really kind of a breath of fresh air because I know I can grab something from any box that Artista has to offer, and I'm going to get something pretty special. So pretty easy, John. We've been doing this all night. I'm going to give you two things and you pick. So, um, so would you have so here's the first question. Every cigar that you smoke from now on either has either canoes on you or tunnels on you. Which one you picking?
I'm gonna go to canoe. Tunnels are very, very tough to recover from. Even if you do a touch up on a canoe, I think fundamentally you're running into an issue probably with humidification on the wrapper, where a canoe more often than not is a smoker problem. So you haven't rotated it properly, or maybe it's a windy situation. So yeah, canoe over tunnel for me.
Okay. Uh, you've had experience with both of these, obviously much more in one than the other, but we've both had experience in this. Now, this is in freedom degrees, mind you. Would smoke only cigars if you could only smoke in 100-degree weather or 20-degree weather? Which one are you doing?
Well, I've experienced both. Many, many times I've smoked at 20 degree or below. And coincidentally, many times I've smoked at 100 degrees, especially with Las Vegas and New Orleans. Um, Despite the fact that neither is particularly pleasant, 100 degrees is a much better environment for the cigar than 20 degrees, just by the nature of the cold. Almost all cigar wrappers struggle to burn properly, and the flavor profile just doesn't deliver. I mean, neither is great, but 100 over 20, absolutely hands down.
I would agree. I like feeling my hands. So definitely, I've smoked both far more in 100-degree weather, and even though that's very unpleasant, I think I would take the 20-degree weather. I would take the 100-degree over the 20-degree weather.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Now, if, just as a side note to that, if humidity plays a part, so if you're smoking at 100-degree weather and it's 85, 90 degrees or 85, 90% humidity, that becomes a bit of a different conversation. Then you might sway me into the 20-degree pool, but just in a normal 100-degree environment, yeah, 100 over 20.
Gotcha. You got some flack at the compound this year from our good friend Jason Samuelson about the V cut that you tend to favor.
Uh-huh.
But I'll make this one easier for you, or maybe not. Would you rather never be able to cut a cigar again, or never be able to toast a cigar ever again?
Oh, never be able to cut or never be able to toast. I think the toasting is more important than the cut, and that might be a bit of a divisive stance. But I think if you don't start with a proper toast, you run the risk of a bad burn problem. Yeah, toasting over cutting.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. Well, while you're not a manufacturer, John, would you rather have your cigar reviewed by Gordon Ramsay or Simon Cowell?
Interesting. Well, I think by the nature of the fact that Gordon Ramsay, like me in a way, approaches things from a flavor perspective. Both are pretty vicious when they want to be. Simon Cowell's pretty funny, but I'm gonna have to go with Gordon Ramsay because I feel like if you can impress Gordon Ramsay, to me, that's more of a notch in your belt than impressing Simon Cowell. So I'm gonna go with Gordon Ramsay.
I think I would agree. I would agree. All right. All right. So this next segment, this is our Everybody Eats segment brought to you by Pastani Cigars. If you always make sure that your serving style is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pastania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pastania, everybody eats. So, John, wanted to ask you a quick question before we got into the real question. All right. So, the real question is, what are your two favorite things that you've ever eaten?
Oh, well, so that's an interesting question. So one of the most interesting things I've ever eaten was baby eel.
Okay.
And that was definitely out there for me. I mean, I'm an adventurous eater, but baby eel was probably at the top of that list. And then candied foie gras, which I think you were you there for the candied foie gras?
Yeah,
I think you were.
the cotton candy foie gras at
Cotton candy foie gras. Yeah,
Bazaar Eats. Okay.
Bizarre meats. Yeah, that was an interesting and innovative take on something I've eaten many, many times, and I would definitely put that in the upper echelon of food experiences that would be tough to replace. So if one had to go away, I would not want to have taken that away from experience.
Okay. So now here's the real question. We've been doing it all night. It's a death match. Cotton candy foie gras versus baby eel. What's going?
Mm. I'm going to keep the baby eel and get rid of the foie gras.
Oh wow.
And I say that because the baby eel became a much sought after. Once we had found it, it became a thing when we would travel back to Havana to make sure it was still in season and have an opportunity to try it again. And so it edges out the foie gras that much.
Nice. Fantastic. All right. Only two more questions to go tonight, John. The next one
All right.
is our asylum moment. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It could be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. John, I want to go back a little bit because I don't know if we've ever really explored this particular moment in your history, but what was the moment that you knew that what you do in cigar media was what you were meant to do?
Oh, that's interesting. Um, I would say that there was a time before I was doing my own blog. So this was the early days of doing cigar reviews. And there was a time where, much like podcasting, where there's, and I know you've experienced this, where, we're talking to each other and we're kind of screaming into the void, as it were. And so, even though we have an audience and we have people commenting, so we know there's people there, in your head, you're not really sure what the audience is. And so I had that moment where people were commenting on my reviews and they, there's a little bit of lip service, but like people are saying, no, I really enjoy what you're writing. I find it really interesting. And there was a moment where basically it was kind of the inception point for me for jumping into cigar reviews, where somebody said to me, hey, you really should start posting these on a site. And I'd never really considered doing that before that moment, but it was basically just a commenter of like, hey, instead of just posting these on Reddit, you should really have your own site. And that was the inception moment where I said, yeah, you know what, I should do that. And that was kind of the kickoff point for me of, fully getting both feet into cigar media, where I'm like, okay, am I going to do this? Am I going to take this seriously? And that was it. That was once I had jumped in both feet into the pool, I knew there was no turning back.
Do you happen to remember the review that he was commenting on?
No
No.
clue. I bet I could find it because the history is all there. It would take some careful Google searches. But it was like, I want to say it was 2012, and it was probably early in the year. So it was probably like April, May, June. I have no idea what review it was. I don't think the review was particularly noteworthy, but that was kind of what started me on the path. And then it was August of that year that I launched my own site. but that was, I remember specifically, it was that comment where I was like, okay, I'm gonna start taking this seriously, and yeah, the rest is history, obviously. But I don't think without that comment, it would have ever dawned on me or motivated me to sort of jump into that space.
So I mean, obviously, just hearing you kind of wax on about it, like, obviously, you don't regret the last 14 years, and as you go into your 15th year of cigar media next year, John, my question is this: like, do you feel more confident, less confident, or the same confident that you got 15 more years in the bag than you did when you probably first started?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I have 15 more years. I think I've reached a point now where I kind of take every year as a blessing. Like, we have this conversation every year about attending trade shows and internally at Developing Palates, we have a powwow every year. Like, okay, we're wrapping up another year of cigar reviews. Do you want to continue and do another year? And we have that meeting every year of like, okay, where is everyone at? Do you want to continue? And I'm sure there's going to be a time in the future where we either decide that we've kind of reached the natural ending point of that process, and maybe I pivot into something else. Maybe I just do cigar shows, or maybe I don't do anything at all. It's hard to say, but I feel less confident about, do I have another 15 years in me versus and certainly if you'd gone back to 2012 and said, do you have 14 years? There's no way I would have thought that I'd be doing it for 14 years coming on 15. I would have assumed that get a couple, 3, 4 years in, and then it'll kind of fade away. Um, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, we kind of have similar conversations in the coalition too, obviously, and it's kind of interesting because if you ask me, like I still like, and again, I'm younger, a lot younger. In a lot of ways, I still feel like I'm new, but this is our 369th episode on this show. I've been doing this I'm coming up on 10 years, you
Yeah,
know, and um, which is crazy to say, but man, like I just can't imagine not doing this for another 15. And I kind of bemoan it a little bit because it's sad because as I have conversations with people like yourself and some other of our contemporaries and stuff, and there is a little bit more of light at the end of the tunnel for some of those
yeah,
individuals. And it's kind of sad that like I'm like, man, I can't imagine not doing this with some of you guys, you know, um,
yeah,
for even a little bit. And Matt Ty was in the chat earlier, and his time in the cigar media space was just under mine. I mean, he bore his show right. He donned his show right just right after mine did, and he put together a magnificent run with the incredible show. And he decided to sunset his for his reasons and stuff. And I could certainly say that the media landscape is a lot sadder of a place without Matt Ty.
definitely.
So I know that people will come and people will go and everything, but for me, like I definitely see the 15 years ahead of me, and I like to me there's no way I'm not going to be here in 15 years. Like there's just no way. I enjoy this too much. It's too much fun. And I enjoy the people way too much. It will be interesting to see like as we continue to trade, like continue to like go to trade shows or other events and everything, the relationships that we'll develop. We're seeing an entire new generation take hold of some of the brands that we've come to love.
Yeah,
Just new eras of everything. I mean, you look at, companies like Drew Estate, for example, Espinosa, going into entire new countries.
yeah,
Uh, you know, and second generation's really taking hold, Class Kellner is going out on his own. You look at the Iroa family and their next generation, Drones, the Fuentes, everybody, it just seems
yeah.
like and then of course Lito Gomez Jr. and
I was
Tony,
gonna say, torch is
as
being
well.
passed from one generation to the next.
Yeah. So and it's funny in my short time and your longer time, you've kind of gotten to see that in full scope. And I think I mean, we're at a great and interesting time in the industry, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, Lito Jr. very much made me feel my age when he was talking about growing up in the factories and seeing his dad and the company and grow and everything. Well, he was born 2 years before I smoked my first La Flor Dominicana. So I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it really
I
puts it in perspective.
it really does. It really does. Awesome. Well, that was our asylum moment. Let's wrap things up, John. And before we do, the curveball question that we always end our show on, I just can't thank you enough for coming in, kicking off this series, which I think will be a tremendous success and a lot of fun, and being a part of it in such a with such a short time, um, you know, lead time on it, man. I just can't thank you enough. It was fun. I really enjoyed this.
Such a pleasure being on. I'm glad I had the opportunity. Always.
All right, so the last question of the night is brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. It's our curveball segment. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter since the company's inception. Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park. Count it up. It's been 11 consecutive years in the consensus top three. Will he make it 12? Well, we all know the answer to that. Everyone in the world knows the answer to that, all except for Steve, who severely doubts it. Um, but we can't wait to prove you wrong again, Steve. All right, here it is. Imagine, John, that after you die, you're allowed to watch exactly one moment of human history unfold in perfect detail, but you can't tell anyone ever what you saw. This is a little goes against the scenario itself, but what moment
Yep.
would you choose and why?
Um, that's an interesting question and one I've actually posited many times because I'm a big fan of sci-fi. And so, the idea of having a time machine where you go back to a moment in time as an observer who can't interfere or change the outcome has played around in my mind for years. And the one moment that keeps coming up, just from a history perspective and from a fascination perspective, believe it or not, would be the building of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Oh yeah.
Um, because I mean, it's not just a small time frame. I mean, it's decades of time. But I think it would be fascinating to be able to see the whole process from inception to construction to completion, and then obviously seeing the original uh, pyramid before time had sort of taken its toll on what the construction was to see that finalized process. That would be, I mean, there's so many great moments in history to be an observer, but that one always kind of floats to the top for me. Um, I think the next would be the Great Library of Alexandria. I mean,
Oh
to be able to
God, yeah.
walk around the Library of Alexandria,
Hmm.
as a ghost or as an invisible observer, to just be able to see that and see the amount of knowledge stored in that one place would be kind of my second one. But yeah, I think the Great Pyramid of Giza floats to
Yeah.
the top for me.
The Library of Alexandria it just pains me. It pains me to even think about the history that was lost.
Yep. So much knowledge. Like, I always talk about it's so wonderful that we have this device in our pocket that is kind of the combined knowledge of mankind in, like, literally in your pocket. And that just wasn't a thing that people had to create these scrolls and maintain these scrolls and these books, and it just wasn't there just was no permanence to that. And that was supposed to be the answer to that, is that we've got this one storage facility for the knowledge of mankind. And to think of that being lost, like almost entirely wiped out, it just makes you wonder, like, what histories, what books, what poems, what mechanical knowledge and science was lost from that. It just boggles the mind to think what was in that library. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little it's a little it's a little ominous.
Hmm.
And I just I man, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. So what we're talking about and in terms of like just the history, it's just terrifying. Um I've thought about this question before too, John, and I'm taken back to a very, very younger version of myself. And it's interesting. I had this friend. He was my best friend, like in first grade. I mean, we're talking 6, 7 years old,
Yeah.
and his name was Drew Morales, and he was smart as a whip, very smart kid, very gifted. Um, I think I've lost track of him over the years, but for last time I saw, he was I think he was kind of following some journalism and then a journalism career path, but he also had some business interests and stuff too. And it wouldn't be surprised me that he was successful in whatever he became, even at the ripe old age of 6 and 7 years old. He just had that trajectory. He was also very religious, which was interesting. His family was devoutly Catholic, and I remember playing on the playground, and we, of course, like any other kids back in that day, would pretend to be time travelers, right? Back to the Future and all that jazz and stuff like that. We would pretend to be time travelers on occasion and, whatever game we were playing. But it was young Drew Morales that always wanted to go back to the crucifixion of Christ,
Mm, yeah.
And when you think about it, I mean, that's a very deep philosophical choice for a 7-year-old. Um, but I'll never forget, while I was playing with him, and it was this interesting moment where we were pretending to be at the crucifixion of Christ or whatever. And I mean, I don't remember what I was pretending to do other than watching this moment, but I remember him as a 6 and 7-year-old, and this kid was on his knees and just kind of this irreverent awe of this historical moment that was unfolding before us in pretend world and stuff like that. Even for a 7-year-old. And it's a moment that stayed with me. Obviously, I'm 42 years old. It stayed with me through the test of times. He probably doesn't even remember it. I don't even know his religious affiliation now. He may not be religious at all. But it stood out to me then and stayed and it stuck with me throughout my entire life just because it was kind of and as that question in different variances has kind of gotten thrown at me, like, what would you do or where would you go and stuff like that. I always go back to that moment and I think about that. And I don't know why. But it obviously was one of those childhood moments that just kind of sticks out to you and kind of stays with you and everything. But it was really interesting. And Drew, if you're watching or listening, man, I wish you the best, man. You were a great kid, and I know you're a great, outstanding human being now, probably. So, um,
I just want to tail onto that. Of all those moments, I think I would have probably picked the Sermon on the Mount over the crucifixion.
mm,
Um,
the
I
feeding of the
mean,
5,000,
both,
right?
right.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. I think that would, like, obviously both moments, very, very pivotal moments. I just think to be in the crowd, for that moment, and like you said, you wouldn't be able to talk about it, but just being there for that moment would have been one of those historical, amazing things to be in the crowd.
Yeah, and then your mind starts going to like everything, right? When you start that question really, really kind of gets you to think about like all these historical moments that have existed in the fabric of our being
Yep.
to be able to go back, like even in your own history, like to go back to your own birth, maybe.
Hmm.
What was that like? What was that like, for your mother and stuff like that? And you know, of course, my mind goes back to Lincoln in our earlier conversation, and the
Absolutely.
Gettysburg Address.
Gettysburg Address.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
It would be on that list for
yeah.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
the signing of the Declaration too. Like I
Oh, yeah.
would love that. But awesome. Well, John, again, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really, really enjoyed these cigar death matches, man. We're gonna bring this back, have you back. We're gonna talk some more. We're gonna make some more people cry. We're gonna get some more hate
Awesome.
mail. It's gonna be good stuff.
I
So.
can't wait.
Awesome. Well, everyone out there, we really appreciate all those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. Don't stop. If you are tuning live to us on Facebook or later on YouTube, our video broadcast is always courtesy of our friends of Foundation Cigars, rather. Nick Melillo began his career in the cigar industry at the age of 18, working in a cigar shop, the Calabash Shop, in his home state of Connecticut. He would go on to work for a well-known cigar company, Drew Estate, where he developed some of their most popular blends. In 2015, he started Foundation Cigar Company over 10 years ago to create unique and flavorful cigars that would appeal from everyone from the novice to the most experienced smoker. And if you are tuning to us later on audio broadcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, our audio broadcast is always courtesy of Grand Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today. And I do mean review. Keep the criticism always constructive, people. I really appreciate it. Listen, if you want to give me a 1-star review, give me a 1-star review. To the guy who gave me the 1-star review and told me that my audio levels suck, thank you. Hopefully you're still listening, and hopefully they've improved. But to the guy who gave me a 1-star review and left it blank, as I tell you every week, my friend, fuck you. I got nothing for you. Can't help you. So, but we do appreciate everyone and everyone out there and in our audience tonight as well, who stayed up late with us as we battled it out with these 15 cigar death matches. Go back, listen to some of the arguments. I think you'd be surprised. And again, we're going to take all the hate mail that you can get us. Yes, we killed off the Liga Privada number 9, everybody. We did it. We did it in favor of the T52, and we stand by the decision. And we'll gladly take the hate mail. It's okay. But we solved the broadleaf problem single-handedly. There you go. It's all good.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. This was our 369th take. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. He is the cigar surgeon, John McTavish of Developing Palates, and, I forgot to mention earlier, the brand new co-host of KMA Talk Radio. Check him out. It's going to be fun. It's a fun time every single time. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.